Chapter 1535. Bang! The sound of thunder resounded through the sky after the fierce collision. The Northern King's body stood in the sky and forcefully resolved the pill lightning that was viciously smashing down from above his head with the might of a punch. He allowed the thunderbolt to wreak havoc on his body as a pair of hollow eyes slowly lifted. He stared intently at the peerless thunderbolt that was once again rapidly descending from the sky. His feet immediately stomped on the empty air. As the space collapsed, his purple-gold body violently collided with the thunderbolt. Bang! The Northern King's body retreated nearly 1,000 feet after this attack. The wild and violent thunderbolt strength quickly followed. The whistling explosion was like waves of mournful roars that reverberated across the sky. That mate seemed as though it would not stop until it tore the Northern King into pieces. As the pill lightning approached, the Northern King's body stood like a metal tower. His body flashed and appeared in front of the enormous black thunderbolt in the blink of an eye. He waved his right arm and a clanging sound rang out. He suddenly clenched his metal fist tightly. The silver-colored thunderbolt continued to dance on the surface of his body and wrapped around his arm. In the end, it wrapped around his entire arm. TSK, what a unique puppet. It is actually able to mobilize the thunderbolt strength to fight. The first elder, who was watching the battle below, could not help but exclaim when he saw the silver-colored thunderbolt that was moving on the surface of the Northern King's body. A grave expression also surfaced on Xiao Siyu's face as she said, "This kind of puppet is simply the most terrifying weapon. It has no emotions or sentience and can even mobilize the thunderbolt strength. This is definitely an invincible existence within the same level." The bewitching woman's bright eyes rotated after she spoke. She used a strange gaze to look at the owner of the puppet. She curled her lips and said, "It is fine if you and the person beside you are monstrous. Why is it that even the thing in your hand has such a heaven-defying strength?" Xiao Yan was involuntarily stunned when he heard this. His mouth parted into a smile as he teased, "Aren't you also beside me? Aren't you also by my side? Someone who can reach your level in both cultivation and alchemy is as rare as a phoenix feather and a Qilin horn in the entire continent. Aren't you one?" Xiao Siyu pursed her red lips. Her smile was quite enchanting. Xiao Yan softly smiled and sighed in response. "Me? I am different from you." Boom! Just as Xiao Siyu was about to reply, the Northern King, who was in the sky, did not stop his tightly clenched fist. The moment he swung his fist, the surrounding empty space suddenly collapsed with a sonic boom. In the endless pitch-black void space was an arm wrapped by thunderbolt strength. Invisible spatial ripples in the darkness as the terrifying power. The Northern King. Calm. Ground. In. The golden scales on the Northern King's body became denser and brighter as the enormous thunderbolt strength continued to fill his body. Just as the thunderclouds were about to disperse, a strange change occurred to the Northern King's body. Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned when he sensed this. He let out a loud cry and recalled the Northern King. Hiss! Xiao Yan and the other two only noticed that the Northern King's entire body was covered by dragon scales when it arrived in front of the Northern King. It appeared as though it was wearing a layer of armor. A vague rebounding force was emitted from the scales when one touched them. The thing that surprised Xiao Yan the most was that the Northern King's palms were gradually swelling and elongating until they turned into a pair of dragon claws. The strange situation gradually stabilized. The ferocious aura emitted from the Northern King's body had also reached its peak. The Northern King's fighting strength had reached the peak of the Source Ancestor level. 3 days had passed since the pill lightning dissipated. Xiao Yan had learned from Xiao Siyu that the pill gathering was approaching when he left his retreat. The clan had decided to send an elder to lead the two of them to the pill tower in 5 days. They should rest well for the remaining time and make preparations for their departure. Xiao Yan and Bai Hua were sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard. They chatted and laughed. Their eyes would occasionally look at the two young ladies who were laughing and playing nearby. Feeling the lively and interesting atmosphere among the young ladies at home, Xiao Yan could not help but sigh emotionally in his heart. At the same time, he also felt that his body and mind had become much more relaxed. Many years of traveling outside had caused Xiao Yan's mind to always be in a tense state. Being able to sit down in such a relaxed state without any vigilance was an extremely luxurious thing. How is it? How confident are you in becoming the champion of the pill gathering after breaking through to rank 7 high grade? Bai Hua gently sipped the tea in her cup and asked with a smile. How can I be confident? The Pill Tower Grand Meeting is a grand event in the hearts of all the alchemists in the continent. Such an event will naturally attract quite a number of high-grade alchemists. It might even attract some hidden alchemist grandmasters. It will not be easy to stand out from these people. Xiao Yan gently shook his head in response. The jade cup in his hand gently knocked on the green stone table. He immediately changed the topic and stared at Bai Hua. You, on the other hand, will have no one to take care of you after I leave this time around. The situation will likely be much more troublesome. Haha, relax. That thing has been in my body for so long. I still have some experience in dealing with it. Moreover, there is the formation plate that Xiao Xian left behind. Even if it does not work, the transforming pill ring can still control it a little. I will definitely not allow anything to happen to me before you return. Bai Hua smiled when she heard this. A calm expression surfaced on her face. However, there was a desolation that was difficult to remove deep within her eyes. Xiao Yan slowly inhaled a deep breath of air as if he had seen through Bai Hua's state of mind. He comforted her. There is no need to be too nervous. Even if I am unable to rush back in time, there is still the clan leader and first elder in the clan. I will ask them to help look after you. As for the heaven-questioning pill, I will definitely think of a way to find it during this trip to the Pill Tower. At that time, the problem in your body will be completely resolved. The next day, warm sunlight scattered down from the sky and shone on the entire Xiao clan. A few figures stood under the archway behind the ancient city hall. Alright, you can send me off here. Xiao Yan looked at Bai Hua and Lian in front of him. After which, he looked at Xiao Chuhang and the rest who had followed behind him. He involuntarily smiled and said. Everyone was speechless. They cupped their hands together towards Xiao Yan. Just as they were about to leave, Xiao Chuhang suddenly said. Xiao Yan, although this trip will be a long one, you represent our Xiao clan after all. No matter what, you have to win the championship. Xiao Yan was initially startled when he heard this. His gaze slowly swept over everyone in front of him. When he saw the hopeful expression in everyone's eyes, he immediately felt a little moved in his heart. Immediately, he nodded his head in a heavy manner. Chapter 1536. Xiao Clan, Ancient Hall. By the time Xiao Yan arrived, Xiao Xiu, the first elder and the rest were already waiting there. What surprised Xiao Yan was that the fourth elder, Xiao Ming, whom he had met once before, was also present. Xiao Yan greeted the ancient hall's manager, Xiao Yan, as he approached. Subsequently, he turned his gaze towards the first elder and the clan leader. At this moment, the few of them were smiling as they looked at the late Xiao Yan. The first elder gently stroked his beard and said, "The two of you will be participating in this event. Although the two of you will be participating in the Alchemist Grand Meeting as individuals, it is difficult to guarantee that you will not meet some fellows from some ancient factions in the Middle Region. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, the clan has decided that the fourth elder will represent the Xiao clan and lead the two of you." Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan finally understood why Xiao Ming would appear here. Although he said that he was representing the Xiao clan, it was more like he was protecting the two of them. On the other hand, Xiao Xiu, who was by the side, curled her lips after hearing Xiao Zhen's words and said, "Grandfather, are you referring to the Bai clan when you say trouble? Currently, the relationship between the Bai clan and the Shao clan was far different from before. Even the slightest contact would lead to a series of troubles. Over the past half a year, many members of the Shao clan had died in their hands. At the end of the day, the Bai clan is just a bunch of clowns. I am only worried that the Alchemist Grand Meeting has attracted many low-key factions from the Middle region. There is no lack of ancient factions among them. If you meet those arrogant fellows, given your character, I do not think that you will give in. Xiao Yan and Xiao Siyu looked at each other after hearing Xiao Zhen's words. Xiao Siyu was the big sister in the clan. She had the backing of the Shao clan in the outside world. Hence, she was naturally more fiery in her actions. As for Xiao Yan, even though he was as powerful as the Bai clan, his attitude did not soften at all. The upper echelons of the Shao clan were afraid that something would happen if there was no one to protect them. After recovering from his shock, Xiao Yan immediately cupped his fist towards the few people in front of him with a serious expression and said in a serious voice, "Clan Chief, First Elder, please take care of Bai Hua and the others while I'm away." The few of them smiled and nodded when they saw this. They consoled Xiao Yan with a few words before he finally relaxed. Xiao Yuheng once again conversed with the First Elder and the others for a long while. The First Elder gave a few instructions to his left and right. Seeing that the two juniors were already somewhat impatient, Xiao Yuheng smiled and spoke. All right. Since everyone is here, let's set off. There's still a long way to go. If we arrive a day earlier, we'll have one more day to prepare. Xiao Yuheng gently waved his hand and indicated for Xiao Ming to depart after uttering these words. The latter merely nodded and took the lead to hurry to the entrance of the Shao clan without saying anything. Behind him, Xiao Yan's face was stunned as he watched the fourth elder swiftly rushing away. He widened his mouth. Only then did he hurriedly move with Xiao Siyu beside him and swiftly follow. The Pill Tower was located in the northeast of the central region. Due to the many alchemists under its command, the few most prosperous cities in the central region were also within the Pill Tower's sphere of influence. This sphere of influence was also known as the Pill region. For this trip, the three of them needed to use the teleportation formation to pass through some neighboring cities and sections. Of course, most of the time, they needed to personally fly tens of thousands of miles. The central region was vast. Even with Xiao Yan's current strength and the help of the teleportation formation, it was likely that the three of them would need nearly 3 months to reach the Pill region together. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had already passed. During this period of time, Xiao Yan's group had shuttled all the way without stopping. They had already crossed a couple of provinces during this period of time. The things that they had seen along the way had broadened Xiao Yan's horizons. Along the way, they had seen quite a number of sects and factions that usually did not reveal themselves. However, once they approached, the auras that were emitted from deep within the sects caused even Xiao Yan to feel quietly shocked. There were quite a number of auras among them that even he could not see through. This was the central region after all. Naturally, those who were able to establish a sect here were not ordinary people. This place was a vast and endless strange mountain range. The reason why it was strange was because the sky was clear and the sun was clearly blue. However, there was goose feather white snow drifting between the sky and the earth. The ruins of the mountain range below were also covered in white snow. The snow plains were empty and a strange poisonous fog rose in all directions, causing this place to become a dangerous place. In the sky, Xiao Yan's group had already flown for nearly 4 hours. However, the sky was still the same. Under Xiao Yan's careful observation, the thick snow on the ground below and the poisonous fog emitted a terrifying aura that caused one's heart to tremble. This is actually caused by a battle between experts. Sensing the strangeness of this mountain range, Xiao Yan could not help but exclaim. Immediately, Xiao Siyu by the side nodded and said, "Not only that. Not only that, this place was originally a plain. It was only because of the great battle that it became like this. To be able to turn such a large area into such a state, was it a decisive battle between clans? No, there were only two people in that battle. As soon as Xiao Yan's puzzled voice faded, Xiao Ming, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke. That battle was a decisive battle between two Source Saint experts who were once famous in the central region. After that battle, the heavenly capital plain turned into the current Dual Saint mountain range. A decisive battle between Source Saint experts. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was even more shocked. The strongest experts he had seen so far were only Source Venerables. Even so, they were already extremely powerful existences. As for a great Source Saint expert, he didn't even dare to think about it. The result of that battle was that one person died and the survivor was seriously injured. That person was a woman called Yi Xingdu. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and muttered in his heart. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere before, but before he could ponder any further, Xiao Ming continued, people call her Du Xingxing. Everyone calls her Du Xingyi because she possesses the rare woeful poison body. It is extremely difficult for someone with such a constitution to survive, but she managed to forcefully suppress it and reach the Genesis Saint stage. It is rumored that when Du Xingyi broke through to the Genesis Saint stage, even the ancestor of the Pill Tower personally paid a visit. But now, everything has changed. There aren't many people on the continent who still remember her name. However, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Crossing Adversity sect that she founded. Du Xing sect. Xiao Yan felt incomparably shocked when he heard Xiao Ming's words, but when he heard the last sentence, he suddenly recalled the fierce battle between the Du Xing sect and the Du Xing sect in the Heavenly Cloud Manor. At that time, the dragon race had indeed mentioned the name Yi Xingdu. It seemed that it was because of this reason that the little fairy doctor. However, just as this thought was swiftly circulating in Xiao Yan's heart, a strange laughter that caused one to feel nauseous suddenly sounded around the three of them who were swiftly flying. TSK 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 TSK, we have been waiting for you for a long time, Xiao Yan. Chapter 1537. As the eerie laughter sounded, a thick black fog suddenly condensed in the void in front of the three of them. Xiao Yan's musing face immediately turned around when this black fog rose. His eyes also instantly became dark and solemn. His gaze contained some icy cold killing intent as he stared at the black fog and the empty space on the other side. He said in a dense voice, "Don't worry. Ghost Slaughter Sect. He, you can say that. However, I am different from those useless people like Gui Xing and Gui Xia. You are just a runaway thief that I have not brought back after so many years. I even allowed you to grow to such an extent. Now, you actually need me to deal with you personally." As the hoarse voice fell, the strange black fog gradually transformed into a human figure, and a rather powerful aura spread out from it. The black fog dispersed, revealing a withered and old face that was like rotten wood. The expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed when he sensed the aura that this person had emitted. This person was a genuine Yuanzun expert. His frightening aura was something that even Xiao Yan's current spiritual perception was unable to see through. From this, one could tell that this person's strength was far from what an ordinary Yuanzun could compare with. "Humph, Green Demon, so it is you," Xiao Ming said in a cold voice when he saw the withered face. Soon after, he sneered in an indifferent tone. "You want to touch Xiao Yan? Have you asked for the Xiao clan's permission?" Xiao Ming took a step forward without hesitation. A murderous aura suddenly swept out. Snowflakes swirled in the sky and vaguely formed a tall wall that pressed down on Green Demon. Buzz! Green Demon was not afraid at all. He waved his sleeve, which was formed by the black fog, violently. Black chi swept out and dissipated with the oncoming pressure. Haha, this venerable self did not expect Xiao Yan to have you escorting him along the way. However, since I have come here today, why don't I take your life on top of completing my mission? Fourth elder of the Shao clan, this will be considered quite a great contribution when I return to the sect. Haha, looking at Xiao Ming's pale face, the corners of Azure Demon's mouth slowly curled into a sinister smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a monstrous aura suddenly poured out from his body. His pair of deep old eyes stared at Xiao Ming as he laughed sinisterly. Xiao Ming, I have long been curious about your strange petrification ability. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to test it out. Today, let me have a good fight with you. You are not worthy. A rare sneer of disdain appeared on Xiao Ming's indifferent face, and he snorted. With a thought, he circulated the mighty Genesis chi in his body and shouted coldly, "Don't underestimate me." Humph, you were trash that couldn't even withstand a single sword strike from my second brother. After so many years, I want to see how much stronger you have become. Pang! The two of them exchanged blows in the blink of an eye. As their fists and palms collided, the surrounding space was instantly shattered. A strong gust of wind surged out like a ring-shaped storm. Xiao Ming and Azure Demon both trembled and staggered back dozens of steps. 5-star source venerate, it seems that you haven't made any progress after so many years. You are still trash. Xiao Ming clenched his fist, and ash-gray Genesis chi flowed out from his palm. It coiled around his arm and quickly solidified into a pair of hard rock gloves. Green Demon's expression turned ugly when he heard Xiao Ming's mocking words. He didn't expect Xiao Ming to have already advanced to a 6-star source venerate. With such strength in his strange Genesis chi, even if he used all his strength, he might not be able to defeat Xiao Ming in a one-on-one battle. Xiao Ming, don't get carried away. You aren't weak, but I never said that I would be the only one here today. Green Demon's shriveled hand clenched violently after his words sounded. Black chi lingered around it as it was ruthlessly tossed into the sky. The instant the cluster of black fog exploded, 3 clusters of surging black fog swiftly gathered in the sky. In the blink of an eye, 3 frightening auras belonging to Origin Venerates swiftly enveloped the area. Another 3 Source Venerates. Xiao Yan involuntarily let out an exclamation the moment these 3 people appeared. He hurriedly exchanged glances with Xiao Siyu and saw a deep solemnness in each other's eyes. 4 Yuan Zun level experts in a row. Such a lineup was in existence that could dominate the entire middle region. It seemed that this group of neither human nor ghost fellows intended to take them down in one fell swoop today. Even with Xiao Ming's calm temperament, he couldn't help but frown at the sight of the lineup in front of him. If the other party only had 2 or 3 source venerates, he might be able to stop them if he gave it his all, but it was impossible to stop 4. Xiao Ming, today, the Twin Saint Mountain will be your burial ground. A hoarse cry was emitted from Qing Mo's mouth. The other 3 Yuan Zuns immediately spread out after the order sounded. They surrounded Xiao Yan's group from different directions. The auras within their bodies erupted and the atmosphere of the place suddenly became tense. The 2 gray-white children quickly swept their eyes over Green Demon and the others. Xiao Ming couldn't help but clench his fists under his sleeves. His mind spun rapidly, and then he looked at Xiao Yan and Xiao Siyu and said in a low voice, "I'll try my best to stall them. Later, I will try my best to delay them. The 2 of you will find an opportunity to sneak into the mountain range. With the poison barrier outside, even this group of fellows will not dare to casually charge in." Xiao Siyu's expression suddenly changed. It was needless to say what the former's words meant, but just as she was about to speak, Xiao Yan slowly shook his head and said decisively, "Fourth Elder, I understand your intentions. Fourth Elder, I understand your intentions. However, this group of fellows have never given up until they achieve their goals. Even if we escape into this poisonous miasma, we may not be able to escape from their pursuit." Before his voice sounded, Xiao Yan flicked his finger. A black light flashed beside him and the Northern King's body appeared. It quickly said, "The Northern King has already revealed itself. So, instead of running aimlessly and waiting for death, it's better to fight with our backs against the wall." As soon as these words left his mouth, even Xiao Ming couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't expect Xiao Yan to have such courage. Even in the face of a source venerate, he didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. Even Xiao Xiu nodded heavily after hearing this. As a junior of the Xiao clan, she had the pride that a member of the Xiao clan should have. Moreover, given their means, even if they were facing a source venerate, they might still be able to fight with them. Seeing the resolute attitude on Xiao Yan's and Xiao Xiu's faces, Xiao Ming could only nod silently. Then, he unconsciously glanced at the North King beside Xiao Yan. While feeling strange in his heart, an inexplicable intuition quietly crept into his heart. Perhaps, as Xiao Yan had said, only by fighting with their backs against the wall would they have a chance of survival. Chapter 1538. In the distant horizon, the auras of 5 source venerables filled the sky. The entire world seemed to tremble slightly at this moment. Under the clear sky, the strange snowflakes floating in the air were also torn to pieces by the auras of these auras. He, do you want to fight to the death? Seeing the Northern King appear beside Xiao Yan, Azure Demon's wrinkled face curled into a frightening sneer. He waved his hand and grinned viciously. "I will deal with Xiao Yan. I will leave the rest to you. Remember, don't let Xiao Yan die." Green Demon suddenly waved his hand, which was shrouded in black fog, after his cry sounded. Dense black fog surged out and quickly gathered, transforming into a chain that emitted a bloody aura. Soon after, his body flashed and appeared in front of Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming waved his left hand, and a huge stone hammer appeared in his hand. "You two try your best to stall him. I will deal with this damn guy as soon as possible," Xiao Ming reminded in a low voice. Soon after, he charged forward. Behind him, the expression in Xiao Yan's eyes became even fiercer as he faced the encirclement of 3 source venerates. His gaze quickly swept across the 3 people in the sky. One was a 2-star source venerate, while the other 2 were at the initial stage. This kind of battle strength might only be at the bottom of the Source Venerable's realm, but it was absolutely terrifying for most Source sect powerhouses. Xiao Yan's eyes swiftly locked onto one of them. A thought passed through his mind and the Northern King immediately shot forward. It transformed into a ray of light that met the other party. Xiao Yan's eyes turned and looked at the 2-star Source Venerate. With the Northern King's current battle strength, he might be able to resist an initial Source Venerate for a while, but if it was a 2-star Source Venerate, it would be extremely difficult for him to counterattack. "Leave this guy to me. I will leave the other one to you." Xiao Yan slowly inhaled a deep breath of air and spoke to Xiao Xiu with a smile. "You?" Hearing this, the latter immediately raised his eyebrows. It was one thing for this fellow to send a puppet to challenge and Source Venerate, but he actually wanted to face a stronger 2-star Source Venerate. If it was anyone else, they would probably be unable to help but call him crazy. "I have some experience in battles between Origin Venerates. Moreover, I'm also a 9-star Origin Source sect, so I have a better chance of winning than you." Xiao Yan smiled faintly as the Genesis Qi in his meridians began to gather and circulate, gradually seeping out from the surface of his body. Seeing this, Xiao Xiu snorted in rebuke. "Are you looking down on my late-stage 8-star Origin sect cultivation base?" Xiao Xiu's delicate fingers immediately lifted to form a seal after her words sounded. A bright red flame suddenly surged from the surface of her body and swiftly agglomerated into an enormous fire phoenix behind her. Soon after, a lovely cry sounded. The aura around her body suddenly swelled the instant the fire phoenix entered her body. Even with Xiao Yan's eyesight, he could not help but feel somewhat surprised when he sensed the powerful aura within the woman's body, which had instantly surpassed that of a 9-star Origin ancestor. Although Xiao Siyu's cultivation had yet to break through the limits of a source venerate, she was already an extremely powerful existence within the origin ancestor realm. My wind fire art may not be able to compare to your secret technique that uses heavenly flames to raise your strength, but it is still somewhat useful in the current situation. Xiao Siyu glanced at Xiao Yan, whose face was filled with surprise. She turned her pretty eyes and coldly looked at the remaining initial stage source venerate. Although this second young miss was arrogant, she still had some understanding of the current dangerous situation. With her strength alone, she did not think that she would be able to survive much longer in the hands of a 2-star source venerate. According to what you said, I'll leave that guy to you. Yes, give me some time. I'll finish him off as soon as possible. Xiao Yan nodded heavily when he saw this. Immediately, he ceased hesitating. A thought passed through his heart and the Skyfire 3 mysterious change was suddenly unleashed. At the same time that he let out an explosive cry in his heart, the aura all over his body suddenly soared at this moment. At this moment, the former was also slightly startled by Xiao Yan's words. He hesitated for an instant before suddenly moving and charging toward that opponent. In an instant, the fierce battle on the field had already begun. Xiao Yan could not help but raise his eyebrows as he felt the constantly rising aura in his body that was infinitely close to that of an origin venerate. He could clearly feel that after using the Skyfire 3 mysterious change, his strength had increased by a lot. After some thought, he concluded that it might be because of the clan sacrifice. You dare to be careless in the face of an origin venerate? You're really courting death. In the next instant, the 2-star origin venerate's figure appeared in front of Xiao Yan like a ghost. As the black fog spread out, a sharp claw viciously swiped towards Xiao Yan's neck. Chi! However, those sharp claws carelessly penetrated Xiao Yan's body. If one were to carefully observe, Xiao Yan's entire body in front of him was slowly twisting and drifting away. It's actually an afterimage. That guy, when did he do it? Sensing the abnormality in front of him, the 2-star origin venerate was greatly alarmed. He abruptly turned around and peered into the distance. There, a black-robed figure quietly stood. At this moment, 6 balls of flames were rising in front of his chest. Waves of terrifying heat spread from them, causing the surrounding space to constantly distort and collapse. Heavenly Flame. Although he had long since heard that Xiao Yan possessed a heavenly flame, this 2-star source venerate was still extremely shocked when he saw it today. His shock quickly turned into a cold snort. His body suddenly shook and majestic black Genesis chi immediately surged out. Following the sound of metal colliding, numerous dark black chains appeared. They were like numerous poisonous snakes as they charged into the sky and shot towards Xiao Yan. Chi. A dense chill surged within Xiao Yan's eyes as he faced those chains that shot explosively toward him. The flame in his hand was pushed forward when the chains arrived in front of him. A frighteningly high temperature immediately incinerated the chains. The strange black-colored metal chains were melted into nothingness amidst an intense chi sound. Die brat. The instant the chains melted, the 2-star origin venerate beside Xiao Yan chased after him again. His 5 fingers curled into claws, and with a burst of wind, he clawed at Xiao Yan's throat. Wherever the claw passed, invisible space collapsed. Bzz. However, just as the hand claw was about to make contact with Xiao Yan's body, a dark black curtain strangely agglomerated in front of the hand claw. This sharp claw was extended into the dark black empty space, but it did not touch Xiao Yan's body even a little. Damn it! It's the Great Void Dao. As he watched the curtain in front of him rapidly shrink, he hurriedly withdrew his hand. Xiao Yan's figure once again disappeared before his eyes. When he turned around, he saw that Xiao Yan, who had dodged the attack, was currently kneading the heavenly flame in front of him in his hand as a terrifying power began to rapidly gather. Chapter 1539. An additional calmness appeared on Xiao Yan's face as he faced the all-out attack of a 2-star source venerate in the sky. His powerful spiritual perception filled the area. Every attack from his opponent was easily and accurately dodged by Xiao Yan. Although it seemed like a dangerous move, it was nothing special in Xiao Yan's eyes. With the help of the Sky Extinction Steps and the Void Great Path, Xiao Yan had faced the 3-star Origin Ancestor by roam with ease. Now that he had used a secret technique, his strength was only a hair's breadth away from becoming an Origin Venerate. Facing a 2-star Origin Venerate, the pressure in his heart was naturally much lighter than before. Corpse Transforming Palm. The instant a chilling shout rang out in the sky, a thick black chi burst out from the 2-star Origin Venerate's palms and condensed into 2 giant black ghost hands. A thick rotting aura rapidly spread as they viciously swatted towards Xiao Yan. Chi! At the same time, Xiao Yan's footsteps changed. He continued to use the Sky Extinction Step. While he pulled back, a dark black spatial curtain swiftly appeared in the empty space a short distance behind him. Xiao Yan's body quietly disappeared the moment the ghost hand arrived. All the strength of that palm ultimately landed in the collapsed endless empty space. Damn it! Xiao Yan, do you only know how to dodge? The black fog dissipated, revealing a sinister face. The latter's heart was currently filled with hatred and unwillingness. As a dignified Origin Venerate, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? After a few rounds of fighting, the other battlefields continued to collide and explode. Only in the battle between the 2-star Origin Venerate and Xiao Yan, no matter how crazily the former chased and attacked, Xiao Yan was always able to narrowly avoid his attacks at the last moment, causing all of his attacks to be useless. Who would have thought that a mere Origin Ancestor's movement technique would be something that even an Origin Venerate could not do anything to? His gaze quickly swept across the battlefield, but a sinister sneer suddenly appeared on his ferocious face. He sneered and said, "Xiao Yan, I want to see just how long you can drag this out." At the same time that he spoke, he raised his eyebrows toward the battleground where Xiao Xiu was located. A cold smile also surfaced in his scarlet eyes. Xiao Yan's speed might be shocking, but if it was merely this, he would not be able to break the situation in this battleground. Looking at the battlefield, the battle between Xiao Ming and Azure Fiend was gradually becoming more and more intense. Clearly, the outcome of the battle would not be decided in a short time. As for Xiao Xiu, she was still an Origin sect expert after all. Even though she could temporarily contend against an Origin Venerate with the help of a secret technique, the difference in strength between the two sides would become increasingly obvious as time passed. At this moment, Xiao Xiu's situation was gradually deteriorating under the continuous bombardment of the initial Origin Venerate. It would not be long before she was defeated by that person. On the other hand, the other battlefield seemed to be a little more interesting. In the battle between the North King and the Origin Venerate, the North King was defeated from the very beginning. The dragon scale armor on his body was quickly destroyed by the bombardment of the chains. In just a few moments, there was not a single part of his body that was intact. However, perhaps because of this, the remaining power of the Lightning Yuan in the North King's body was able to erupt. Not only was it able to constantly repair his injured body, but even his battle strength was becoming more and more tyrannical with the continuous collisions. What was even more strange was that the North King's body had undergone another mutation during this battle. In the sky, Xiao Yan, who had noticed the change in the situation on Xiao Xiu's side, had a slight change in his expression. Then, he slowly exhaled and turned his gaze back to the 2-star Origin Venerate opposite him. His eyes narrowed as he said coldly, "It seems that I have to get rid of you as soon as possible." After saying this, Xiao Yan clapped his hands heavily. As the flames exploded, the speed at which the flames in his palms merged suddenly increased. As the heavenly flames merged, the embryonic form of a fire lotus quickly condensed. At the same time, an even more terrifying aura of extermination spread out from it. This guy, how can he gather such astonishing power? The two-star origin venerate's face could not help but twitch a few times when he sensed the gradually berserk energy in Xiao Yan's palms. A look of fear appeared on his face. The aura was so terrifying that even an expert of his level could not help but feel an aura of death. At this very moment, there was only one thought in his mind. He absolutely could not allow Xiao Yan to continue like this. As this thought rose in his mind, the black Genesis chi in his body began to frantically circulate. He took a step forward, and the space in front of him suddenly distorted. His body instantly disappeared, and in the next instant, he appeared in front of Xiao Yan like a ghost. Without any hesitation, he reached out to grab the flame in Xiao Yan's palm. This time, in the face of the two-star origin venerate's attack, Xiao Yan did not choose to retreat. Instead, he held the fire lotus that was about to take shape with one hand and covered it with the other. A suction force madly surged from his palm, pulling strands of berserk energy from the fire lotus and gathering it in his palm. Since you can't wait, I'll let you have a taste of the power of this fire lotus. Xiao Yan let out a cold cry. Immediately, he slammed his palm forward and violently collided with the hand claw that was heading toward him. Bang! The flame formed from berserk energy suddenly collided with the pitch-black energy, and a low explosion immediately spread. Ripples of wind spread out in a ring shape, easily shattering the surrounding space. That origin venerate took dozens of steps back. He looked at the layer of charred black imprint on his hand and his face immediately became incomparably gloomy. When he looked at Xiao Yan again, he had used the collision between the two to fly back. After which, he swiftly turned around and approached the initial stage origin venerate who was fighting with Xiao Xiu. Not good. That cunning brat. The expression of the two-star source venerate immediately changed when he sensed Xiao Yan's intention. His body hurriedly rushed forward, but Xiao Yan had already arrived behind that person. Although the latter had already sensed Xiao Yan, it was already too late. All that was left was for a warm hand to be placed on his back. Soon after, a frightening, turbulent, tidal-like energy poured out. Mountain River Seal. Bang! The instant Xiao Yan shouted in his heart, the initial stage origin venerate from the Ghost Slaughter sect was suddenly sent flying by this palm. Blood spurted out as his body uncontrollably fell towards the mountain range below. Die! Almost at the same time, the two-star origin venerate moved behind Xiao Yan. Surging black energy gathered in his palm, and he ruthlessly slammed it down on Xiao Yan's back. However, just as this palm was about to imprint on Xiao Yan's back, a fire lotus had unknowingly imprinted itself on the latter's chest. In the next instant, buzz. An earth-shaking buzzing sound suddenly resounded over the entire place. The sound wave swept over the place. In an instant, the snowflakes drifting in the sky were completely swept away. What followed was a frightening fire wave that reached the sky, evaporating the entire place. Even the old accumulated snow on the mountain range below and the poison fog that permeated the air were slightly affected. Outside the battlefield, Xiao Ming, Qing Mo, and the others, who had hurriedly retreated from the battle, watched the scene that had suddenly erupted. The expressions of both sides instantly turned grave. Chapter 1540. A huge wave of fire suddenly erupted from a thick black fog. The wind and snow between heaven and earth dissipated, and a terrifying energy swept out. The energy waves caused by the wave of fire directly lifted the snow on the mountain range below, and the purple-black poisonous fog floating in the air also dispersed. If one were to look down from high up in the sky, one would be able to clearly see an enormous fire ring swiftly spreading in all directions from the epicenter of the explosion. Everywhere it passed, the calm empty space would collapse. The snow-white mountain peaks were also completely swept away by this energy. The originally cool and moist air was also completely vaporized under the grilling of the high temperature of the heavenly flame. The power of the fire lotus was terrifying. In the sky, Xiao Ming, Qing Mo, and the others had naturally relied on their own strength to successfully avoid the terrifying energy within the wave of fire, but even with their cultivation bases, they still couldn't help but be shocked by the shocking scene before them. Among them, the beginner-level Source Venerate, who was fighting fiercely with the North King, stopped with a pale face and a frightened look on his face. He stood high in the sky and looked down at the empty mountain range below, which had suddenly become empty. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. After a long while, the huge cloud of fire created by the fire lotus in the sky gradually dissipated, and then two figures fell from it. Azure Demon and the others immediately looked over. Azure Demon frowned when he saw the man who was in a sorry state and whose black fog had almost dissipated. That man was the beginner-level Source Venerate who had previously fought with Xiao Siyu. As for the other figure, it was a skinny figure with a broken body that revealed flesh and blood and half a skeleton. Compared to the former, this fellow had completely lost all signs of life. This skinny figure was naturally the two-star Source Venerate who had been closest to the explosion of the Fire Lotus. Xiao Yan's attack had directly killed two of their Source Venerates. How is this possible? Azure Demon's old face turned ugly when he saw that the two figures who had fallen from the mountain range were both Source Venerates from his side. His face alternated between green and white, and extreme anger surged in his chest. But then, another two figures charged out from within the fire cloud. If one were to look at them, they were surprisingly Xiao Yan and Xiao Siyu. Xiao Yan, you're still alive. The expression on Qing Mo's face immediately sank when he saw Xiao Yan's unharmed manner. He let out a furious cry and his body suddenly flashed. After which, he appeared in front of Xiao Yan in a ghost-like manner. His shriveled hand was gently extended forward. Soon after, it landed on Xiao Yan's neck. Heaven and earth. However, the next moment, the air, including Azure Demons, suddenly froze. Although it was only for a moment, when Azure Demon summoned the black fog to protect himself, Xiao Ming had already retreated hundreds of meters away with Xiao Yan and Xiao Siyu. The gray-eyed boy looked directly at Azure Demon, and the latter was facing him. Xiao Ming waved the giant hammer in his hand and said coldly, "Without those two fellows getting in the way, I can fight 1 against 2 and kill them without hesitation." Upon hearing this, the actions of Qing Mo's subordinates came to a sudden halt. The corners of his eyes involuntarily twitched as he sensed the strange pressure from the other side. His gaze swiftly shifted to the initial level Source Venerate beside him as the murderous intent in his heart churned once again. He naturally knew that he had no chance of winning against Xiao Ming alone, except for delaying the battle. However, if the person beside him risked his life, puff. A fierce flame once again rose in front of Xiao Yan just as this thought rose within Qing Mo's heart. 6 clusters of flames slowly floated under the control of Xiao Yan's hands. Dense eyes stared at Xiao Yan. This guy, seeing Xiao Yan's posture, Azure Demon's face turned slightly pale. Facing the Fire Lotus, even someone as strong as him had to treat it seriously. Humph, Xiao Yan, let's wait and see. I don't believe that Xiao Ming will follow you forever. A moment later, Qing Mo finally let out a cold snort in a dense manner. His heart was filled with dissatisfaction. Originally, he had thought that he would be able to capture Xiao Yan even if there was someone guarding him since he had led 3 Yuan Zun experts this time around. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yan's fighting strength was actually this frightening. He had relied on his Yuan Zone cultivation to forcefully kill a Yuan Zun expert. This was something that they had not expected. Looking at the mountain range where the poisonous fog was slowly converging, Azure Demon completely dispelled the thought of rescuing Xiao Yan. He looked deeply at Xiao Yan again, twisted his body, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Watching Azure Demon's figure leave, Xiao Ming breathed a sigh of relief. He dispersed the stone hammer in his hand, and the moment he turned his head, Xiao Yan's face suddenly turned red, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The flame in front of him dissipated, and his face instantly turned pale. Xiao Yan. This sudden scene caused the expressions of Xiao Siyu's group to change drastically. Only when Xiao Yan raised his hand and gestured did the three of them decisively descend. Under the protection of the heavenly flame, they safely stood on a mountain peak below. After which, they swallowed a couple of medicinal pills and slowly began to refine them. At the same time, the Northern King, who was high up in the sky, stood straight between heaven and earth. Wisps of silver lightning shuttled back and forth on his dragon-scale stomach, which was filled with purple-gold flowing light. His appearance also began to change strangely. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. Following the refinement and absorption of the medicinal pill within Xiao Yan's body, the injury from the palm that he had suffered in the big battle earlier gradually recovered on the bare mountain peak. When he opened his eyes, a sharp flame flashed through the deep recesses of his eyes. His aura had finally returned to its peak. "Are you all right?" Seeing that Xiao Yan had awakened from his cultivation, Xiao Siyu immediately asked with concern. "Yes." Xiao Yan gently nodded when he saw this. He stood up and looked at the poison barrier that permeated around him. A thought passed through his heart and the fierce heavenly flame immediately spread apart, forming a tunnel above the three of them. After staying for a couple of days, it was time for them to make the best use of their time and hurry on their journey. Ha! Just as the three of them rose into the air and were about to move, the Northern King, who was standing in the distance, caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily cry out in surprise. The Northern King returned to Xiao Yan's side in the blink of an eye after the summon. Even Xiao Yan was involuntarily startled when he sensed the sudden increase in the Northern King's speed. When he once again focused his eyes, the Northern King in front of him caused Xiao Yan to feel extremely surprised. Chapter 1541. Is this a dragon man? Xiao Yan was a little surprised when he saw the North King's transformation. Even Xiao Ming and Xiao Siyu, who were beside him, looked at the North King with interest. At this moment, the dragon scales on the Northern King's body were brighter and denser than they had been a few days ago. Aside from the dragon scales, there were also a few mysterious lightning symbols on his ice-cold face. Even his cold eyes were filled with lightning. The most eye-catching thing was the pair of dragon horns on his head and the thick and powerful dragon tail behind him. There was even lightning energy coiling around it. As he swung it gently, the violent lightning energy easily cut through the void with faint explosive sounds. What a magical puppet! Not only has it reached the level of a source venerate, but it has also transformed into a legendary dragon man. Even with Xiao Ming's experience, he couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the magical puppet in front of Xiao Yan. As the fourth elder of the Xiao clan, it went without saying that he had a lot of experience in the continent. Even so, he had only seen the legendary dragon man with his own eyes today. After all, even the Xiao clan, one of the top forces in the continent, couldn't compare to the proud ancient Void Dragon clan. I didn't expect the North King to become a source venerate because of this misfortune. Xiao Yan's eyes were somewhat stunned as he looked at the Northern King in front of him. A curiosity immediately rose in his heart. With a cry, the Northern King's body immediately faced an empty space. Immediately, its hand, which had transformed into a dragon claw, was clenched tightly. One could hear a wave of crackling explosions. Numerous thunderbolts lingered around its wrist. The moment it threw a punch forward, the sky-high thunderbolts transformed into numerous enormous rings that spread out, shattering and collapsing the empty space in front of it. What a powerful force! The joy on Xiao Yan's face became even denser when he saw this scene in front of him. With this move, the Northern King alone would be able to suppress an ordinary Yuan-Zun expert if he met one. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart, he recalled the North King. When he turned around, he saw the envious looks on Xiao Siyu and Xiao Ming's faces. He couldn't help but be startled and smile awkwardly. Needless to say, Xiao Xiyu was envious of the North King's strength. Anyone below the level of a source venerate would be tempted by such a magical puppet. As for Xiao Ming, he couldn't help but feel a little ashamed when he saw a lifeless puppet with the strength of a source venerate like him, even though he was naturally indifferent. After putting away the puppet, the three of them sorted out their emotions and hurried in the direction of the Pill region. With the example of Qing Mo's group intercepting them, Xiao Yan's group was naturally much more cautious during the subsequent journey. It was also during this period of time that Xiao Yan learned that Qing Mo belonged to the Ghost Gate. He also held the position of an elder within the Ghost Gate. It could be said that his position was quite high. Even Xiao Yan did not expect that the Ghost Gate would actually dispatch such an expert to capture Xiao Yan this time around. On top of quietly feeling anxious in his heart, he involuntarily inquired of Xiao Yan about some of the reasons. The latter naturally gave a non-committal reply. After all, the two Shi ancient gods' jade involved too many things. Even the current Xiao clan might not be able to completely believe it. Moreover, even he didn't know what secrets the two Shi ancient gods' jade held in the Yuanwu continent. The only thing he could imagine was that it might be related to that level again. Xiao Yan's group had various complicated emotions along the way, but it was still relatively peaceful for them. Along the way, they had borrowed the teleportation formations of various large cities to hurry along the way. The three of them were also getting closer to the territory of the Pill Tower. As they got closer, the number of alchemists that Xiao Yan saw along the way also gradually increased. Other than many of the best amongst the younger generation, there were also some older generation alchemist grandmasters who had made a name for themselves in the Middle region for many years. There were even quite a number of ancient factions that had resided in the Middle region for a long time. Not only were there origin venerates leading the group, but there was also a young alchemist among them. It was likely that he wasn't much better than Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan involuntarily sighed in his heart when he saw this. This was finally a place filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There were many factions that were usually unknown to others. However, once they revealed themselves, they would cause one to be incomparably shocked. Compared to the factions that they had met along the way, which only had a single origin venerate, these factions paled in comparison. Xiao Yan's group finally successfully arrived within the territory of the Pill Tower 2 months before the start of the Pill Gathering due to this hurried journey. Glass City. A strange glint involuntarily flickered in Xiao Yan's eyes as he looked at the majestic city that stretched like a mountain range. Along the way, he was already used to seeing various spectacular city sights. Hence, when he saw this city at the edge of the Pill region, there was naturally no longer the shock in his eyes that he had in the past. This is only a city on the outskirts of the Pill region. There is also a rank 8 transportation array in the city. Let's rest here for a while. If everything goes well, we should be able to reach the Pill City before evening. Xiao Ming casually glanced at the ancient city that was built like crystals and spoke in a casual manner. He then led the way. Behind him, Xiao Xiyu and Xiao Yan both curiously observed the surrounding environment. Xiao Yan arrived in front of the city gate. Now that he was close, he could clearly sense the ancient aura that this city emitted. This was especially the case when Xiao Yan used his spiritual perception to touch the crystal wall. A strong and powerful aura spread from it. This is spiritual force. Xiao Yan's eyebrows twitched violently. The layer of crystal on the surface of the wall was actually formed by a huge amount of spiritual force. Compressing one's spiritual strength and agglomerating it into an essence was something that Xiao Yan believed that he could do. However, if one were to say that a brick wall that was agglomerated from one's spiritual strength and covered the entire city within it, it was likely that this method was far from something that a single person could accomplish. It is indeed worthy of being the gathering center of the continent's alchemists. Only the Pill Tower is able to use spiritual force to build a city's defense. Xiao Yan could not help but shake his head and feel speechless as he secretly praised in his heart. Soon after, he followed Xiao Ming's footsteps and stepped into the majestic city. After passing through the city gate, the group was first startled by the bustling scene in front of them before they even entered the city. Perhaps it was because the alchemist grand meeting was approaching, but the flow of people in Luli's city, which was some distance away from the pill gathering, was especially terrifying. Currently, there were various tyrants in this place. Not only were there crooks mixed in with the honest folk, but some rare and strange things that were rarely seen in the outside world had also spread in this place. Naturally, there was no lack of true treasures among them. Of course, the prerequisite for all of this was that one had sufficient eyesight. Chapter 1542. The three of them slowly shuttled through the human flow on the street. Due to Xiao Ming being at the front, the area around Xiao Yan's group was quite spacious. They did not have to squeeze among the crowd with great difficulty like the others. Along the way, Xiao Yan looked at the stalls on both sides, which were gradually filling up with items. The corners of his mouth curled into an interested smile, and a hopeful look appeared on his face. Although these stalls did not appear to be popular, it was difficult to guarantee that there would not be any rare treasures hidden within them. After all, there were quite a number of good things on him that he had obtained from these inconspicuous stalls. Therefore, each time he saw them, Xiao Yan would not tire of them even though there was rarely anything that caught his eye. In the end, these stalls were a competition of luck. As the crowd headed towards the center of the city, Xiao Yan could clearly sense that the number of powerhouses around them was increasing. Unlike other places, at the border of the middle region and even under the three great clans, the experts from the source zone could be considered the cornerstone of the clans. However, such a strength was merely ordinary in the current Luli city. Xiao Yan's spiritual perception even sensed that there were at least 3 auras of the Source Zone class around the street they were currently on. The Pill Tower was indeed worthy of being called the #1 faction in the continent. A pill gathering in an ordinary city could attract such a large number of Source Venerates. It was hard to imagine how many powerhouses of such strength would be gathered at the Pill Tower's headquarters. As they passed through the street, Xiao Yan was surprised by the various powerhouses in the city. His gaze swept across the surrounding stalls one by one, but unfortunately, he did not find any special treasures. Xiao Yan had no choice but to quicken his pace. Instead of wasting time on these worthless stalls, it was better to hurry to the final destination of this trip, Pill City. He believed that they would be able to see even more rare items there. However, while Xiao Yan's group was moving quickly, a rather unusual stall suddenly attracted Xiao Yan's attention. There was only a pitch-black metal scroll placed on top of the huge stall made of bluestone. Other than that, there was nothing else. The owner of this stall was currently sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. He did not seem to care about the few people who were examining the metal scroll in front of the stall. This action caused quite a number of passers-by on the street to cast curious gazes in succession. Some of the people who were familiar with them had a mocking smile on their faces. Immediately, they shook their heads and left. The old man was well known in Valurium City. He only bought one item every day until he sold it. Only then would he change to another item. For some unknown reason, the iron scroll on the stone platform had been there for almost a month. During this period, many people had come forward to inquire about it, but the final result was not satisfactory. "Old man, you actually dare to demand such an exorbitant price for a soul skill with an unknown background. Aren't you a little too greedy?" At this moment, the few people in front of the stall revealed impatient expressions on their faces after inspecting the black metal scroll in front of them. Their disdainful gazes landed on the old man with his eyes closed. However, the old man acted as if he did not hear these disdainful words. The expressions on the faces of the few people turned gloomy when they saw the old man's attitude. Clearly, they were quite interested in this metal scroll. However, the seller's price and attitude were really unacceptable. "Get lost." The old man appeared to have become a little impatient in the face of the endless chatter of the few people in front of the stall. He suddenly opened his mouth and a threatening voice that contained a spiritual pressure was suddenly emitted. Those few people immediately became absent-minded for a couple of seconds under this cry. Their expressions had changed drastically by the time they recovered. They immediately snorted coldly and swiftly left. After that, Xiao Yan stepped forward with interest. Xiao Xiu frowned as she watched Xiao Yan's actions. Her cautious gaze also landed on the old man. However, Xiao Ming's eyes were fixed on the black metal scroll when he saw it. He frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. "Old man, may I take a look at this metal scroll?" Xiao Yan stepped forward and asked the old man politely with a smile. However, the old man ignored him. Seeing this, Xiao Yan immediately felt a little embarrassed. He smiled embarrassedly. Then, with a thought, spiritual strength gathered and slowly approached the metal scroll on the stone platform. However, when that old man sensed the spiritual strength in Xiao Yan's body, a pair of tightly shut old eyes were immediately opened. His expression was somewhat surprised as he looked at Xiao Yan. He sized him up, but was unable to find any younger generation alchemist who was comparable to Xiao Yan from his memories. At the same time, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength was poured into the metal scroll in front of him. After a short period of continuous pouring, there was indeed a soul technique hidden deep within this metal scroll. However, just as Xiao Yan was attempting to probe it, he sensed that there was a layer of restriction that had been added by an external force. Xiao Yan immediately frowned when he sensed this. It was likely that no one would do such a foolish thing if they were to bid for it without even knowing the tier of this soul technique. A long while later, Xiao Yan could only withdraw his spiritual strength in disappointment after confirming that there was indeed nothing else within this metal scroll. Immediately, he sighed softly. In the end, he still adopted a curious attitude as he asked the old man, "Senior, how much do you intend to pay for this metal scroll?" Hearing this, the old man raised his eyelids and nodded slightly. 2 high-grade class 7 pill recipes. Xiao Yan was immediately at a loss when these words were uttered. His face immediately revealed a bitter smile as he shook his head and said, "Senior, there is indeed only one soul skill in this metal scroll. If you want to exchange it for such a price, it is a little too high." I thought that you are also a class 7 alchemist, but you are actually such a mediocre person. This old man has overestimated you. Let's go." The old man sneered. His tone was full of mockery. These words caused Xiao Xiu's face to darken. She was about to step forward to argue when Xiao Ming suddenly reached out and stopped her. His lips parted slightly, and his words were quietly transmitted into Xiao Yan's ears. Soul Stone Metal Scroll. After hearing Xiao Ming's voice transmission, Xiao Yan's face, which had just revealed a disappointed expression, was suddenly stunned. A moment later, he nodded silently. His pitch-black eyes, which were staring at the metal scroll in front of him, gradually became fiery. Chapter 1543. Xiao Yan, if I am not wrong, this thing should be the Soul Stone Iron Scroll that is rarely mentioned in the ancient books. Xiao Ming's surprised voice entered Xiao Yan's ears, causing the latter's expression to change. The Soul Stone Metal Scroll was a mysterious item that was rarely recorded even in the ancient books. Xiao Ming had only learned about it from Xiao Mingyuan in his early years. Although the latter was rather lazy in his training, he had a vast understanding of matters related to alchemy. It was just that Xiao Ming did not expect that they would actually come across a legendary treasure that even Xiao Mingyuan yearned for. When it came to the Soul Stone Metal Scroll, Xiao Yan was fortunate enough to learn a thing or two about it from a couple of ancient books within the Xiao clan. However, he had only focused on investigating the things within the metal scroll and had neglected the metal scroll itself. Now that he was looking at it again, the densely packed ancient symbols carved on it were arranged in an orderly manner. From the looks of some of the unique symbols on it, this metal scroll in front of him should undoubtedly be the legendary Soul Stone Metal Scroll. The Soul Stone Metal Scroll was an extremely rare soul skill secret scroll that usually only existed in the records of ancient books. The reason why it was called this was because this soul stone metal scroll was mostly created by powerful alchemist grandmasters using their spiritual strength and special materials to create it. This kind of metal scroll usually existed as a set. If there was really a high-class soul skill within it, there would at least be 2 scrolls. If a person who did not understand it used an ordinary method to investigate it, the result would usually be the same as the one that Xiao Yan had obtained. However, if one was able to investigate the reason behind it, one might perhaps obtain an unexpected gain. If there are 2 scrolls or more than 2 E-class soul skills, it is not a bad deal to exchange 2 high-grade rank 7 pill formulas for them, Xiao Yan quietly calculated in his heart and made up his mind. He immediately lifted his eyes and looked at the old man on the opposite side of the stone platform, who had his eyes shut in concentration. He parted his mouth and said, "May I know if Elder can tell me the rank of the soul skill in this iron scroll?" The old man's shut old eyes were once again opened when he heard this. His mind was slightly surprised when he saw the calm expression on Xiao Yan's face. His eyes swiftly looked to Xiao Ming behind Xiao Yan. His heart seemed to have understood something when he saw the grayish-white eyes of the child. "It seems that this old man has underestimated you. This mister is an expert." The old man nodded slightly at Xiao Yan. Then, he turned his turbid eyes back to Xiao Yan. "This old man's offer isn't low, but I won't let you down. What you see is a mid-grade intent rank soul skill. Middle-level intent." Xiao Yan frowned slightly, but a huge wave had already formed in his heart. Compared to high-class DO skills, high-class soul skills on the continent were even rarer. A high-class soul skill could even be exchanged for a Tier 8 medicinal pill. Although the heart-shattering poem that he had mastered could similarly shatter one's spirit, it was ultimately still lacking compared to the surprise nature of soul skills. If he could obtain this soul stone metal scroll, he would be able to add 2 E-class soul skills to his body. It would also be a great boost to Xiao Yan's fighting strength. But now, Xiao Yan's finger gently tapped on the stone table in front of him. His pitch-black eyes moved as if he was thinking about something. After a long while, he slowly shook his head and said, "Old mister, although a mid-grade intent rank soul skill is valuable, it is still only a mid-grade intent rank soul skill." After saying that, Xiao Yan turned his palm and took out a scroll and a jade bottle from his storage ring. He said, "I have a scroll with the pill formula for the 7 lives suspension pill and 2 medicinal pills. What do you think about it?" "Think about it? You don't have to trick me with these things. You and I are well aware of the value of this metal scroll. If you really want to take it, you'd better take out something of real value." Hearing this, the old man curled the corners of his mouth and revealed a mocking smile. Then, he crossed his arms and sat back down with his eyes closed. "If you feel that you have lost out, you can leave on your own." After saying that, the old man returned to his previous posture. He was too lazy to bother with Xiao Yan in front of him. Only the latter frowned slightly and stared at the soul stone iron scroll in front of him. There was a slight hesitation in his expression. "Forget it." A short moment later, Xiao Yan appeared to have made up his mind. He sighed and flipped his hand once again. Another jade bottle appeared in his hand. The instant he opened it, a wave of searing, rich medicinal fragrance immediately spread swiftly around the area. The spread of the medicinal fragrance attracted the attention of quite a number of passers-by around them. The old man in front of Xiao Yan threw a gaze that was filled with shock over the moment the jade bottle was opened. Although the shock merely lasted for an instant, it was still captured in the eyes of Xiao Yan, who was carefully observing. "I believe that old mister has heard of the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill." Xiao Yan smiled and spoke in a relaxed manner. "Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill." Hearing this, the expression on the old man's face changed once again. He had naturally heard of this mysterious medicinal pill that was revered by countless alchemists. However, he did not expect that this medicinal pill, which was only passed down in legends, would actually appear in front of him today. I can use this Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill and the 7 Lives Suspending Bone Pill formula in exchange. The excitement on the old man's face became even denser when he heard Xiao Yan's words. If he was able to obtain the Ground Spirit Quenching Flame Pill, it would definitely raise his achievements in the path of alchemy. However, this old man was ultimately a shrewd old man. When he saw the medicinal pill in front of him, the emotion that had become increasingly great in his heart was forcefully suppressed. He turned his old eyes and once again sat back down. He laughed and said, "The collection in young friend's hands has indeed surprised this old man. However, medicinal pills are after all only medicinal pills. No matter how many there are, there will come a time when they are exhausted. Moreover, you only have one medicinal pill. If young friend is willing to add the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill formula, you can have this metal scroll." Hearing this, Xiao Yan was startled. Immediately, displeasure appeared on his face. That pill formula was a remnant of the Fire Banyan tribe. If he casually gave it away, it would go against the trust of the Huorong siblings. No matter what, he could not easily take it out. Immediately, he shook his head with a regretful face and said, "I only obtained this Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill by luck. I don't have the pill formula in my hands. What I said just now is also my bottom line. If Elder is still dissatisfied, this junior is not willing to force it." After saying these words, he stood up without hesitation and kept the jade bottle in his hand. He turned his head and exchanged glances with Xiao Ming and Xiao Yan behind him. He shook his head slightly and ignored the old man's reluctant expression as he lifted his leg and left. Seeing Xiao Yan leave so decisively, a struggling expression immediately appeared on the old man's face. The price had already reached this point. At this moment, both parties knew that they were competing in patience. Whoever could last until the end would be the final winner. Even if the old man did not sell, there would still be an endless stream of passers-by coming forward to inquire. However, once he missed the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill, he was afraid that he would not have it in his life. Seeing that Xiao Yan's group was about to disappear into the crowd, the old man finally clenched his teeth hatefully. He used his spiritual strength to transmit a voice and shouted, "Young friend, please wait." The moment his words sounded, Xiao Yan's forward footsteps suddenly paused. His tensed face also suddenly relaxed. He immediately turned his head around and returned to the front of the stall with a calm face. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the old man in front of him. Dan said, "Old mister, have you changed your mind? There is no need for you to put on such an attitude. This old man has ruthlessly released many customers. It is just that I am unwilling to miss the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill in your hands." Seeing Xiao Yan's manner, the old man curled his mouth in a somewhat mocking manner. The latter immediately laughed and did not hide anything. He extended his hand and 2 items that he had prepared beforehand were revealed from under his sleeves. They were the pill formula for the 7 Lives Bone Suspension Pill and the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill. The old man involuntarily sighed helplessly when he saw the medicinal pill that Xiao Yan extended his hand to hand over. For an alchemist, especially an alchemist like him, who had reached the end of the path of alchemy, there was no other possibility other than relying on external items if he wanted to take another step forward. Hence, the excitement in his heart was overflowing with words when he first saw the Earth Spirit Quenching Flame Pill. The old man swiftly put away the jade bottle scroll that Xiao Yan handed over. The expression on his face gradually became warmer. An excitement that could not be suppressed surged out from his pair of old eyes. This scene caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily laugh softly. Immediately, his gaze was withdrawn and landed on the soul stone metal scroll in front of him. He quietly sighed in his heart about how dangerous it was. After which, he extended his hand and took it. However, just as Xiao Yan's hand was about to touch the metal scroll, a white hand suddenly extended from the side. A suction force surged from the palm and the metal scroll was moved. A laugh was also transmitted over at the same time. Haha, this friend, everything is first come first serve. I saw this metal scroll first. Although I returned a little late, I want this metal scroll. Chapter 1544. The sudden change in the situation caused Xiao Yan's face to darken. He extended his hand and flicked his finger. An invisible force immediately shot out and knocked the metal scroll, which had just floated in the air, back onto the stone platform. Glancing over, a young man in luxurious green clothes was standing with a slight smile on his face. Looking at his cultivation, it was likely that he had just entered the 6-star origin sect. However, the spiritual pressure that faintly spread from his body caused Xiao Yan to be slightly surprised. The young man stepped forward. His refined eyes contained some disdain as they swept over the surrounding crowd. He was not annoyed by Xiao Yan's previous actions. With a wave of his sleeve, a ray of light landed on the stone platform, transforming into 2 scrolls that quietly lay there. Old Senior, these are 2 high-grade rank 7 pill formulas. They should be sufficient to exchange for this metal scroll. The young man's face was warm as he looked at the old man behind the stone platform. His face was filled with confidence as he spoke. I'm sorry that you are late. The goods have already been sold and the rest has nothing to do with me. This metal scroll has already been sold to this young friend. As for your item, take it back. However, what the young man did not expect was that the old man merely casually glanced at the 2 pill formulas before gently shaking his head. After which, he lazily leaned against the back of the chair. The hand under his sleeve gently rubbed the jade bottle in his hand. The current him was completely focused on the earth spirit quenching flame pill in his hands. Although the 2 high-grade rank 7 pill formulas were precious, it was not enough for him to use the achievements of the latter half of his life to exchange for them. The young man involuntarily frowned when he saw the old man's indifferent attitude. After which, his gaze turned and looked at Xiao Yan opposite him. A smile was lifted on his face as he said, "This friend, I am Yao Shiling from the Yao clan. May I know your name?" Yao clan. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's brows twitched slightly. The Yao clan was also one of the ancient clans. Their foundation was considered to be one of the top clans. Currently, they lived in the north of the Pill region, close to the Beast region of the extreme north. From a certain perspective, they could be considered as a vassal of the Pill Tower. However, these people were arrogant and refused to admit it. By relying on the Pill Tower and the terrain of the Beast region, the Yao clan had been able to live peacefully for many years. They did not end up in a miserable state like the Northern Ishir clan. Moreover, in recent years, the Yao clan had nurtured quite a number of talents in an attempt to send them to the Pill Tower in order to strengthen their position. However, the outside world did not know whether this was effective or not. When it saw the change in Xiao Yan's expression, the smile on the medicinal rock spirit's face became even wider. At the same time, its expression also involuntarily revealed an arrogant expression. It immediately parted its mouth and laughed. "Humph humph, little brother, since things have already developed to this point, I think that both of us are well aware of the background of this metal scroll. Although you have bid first, I have taken a fancy to this thing first. If you are afraid of suffering a loss, I can offer double the price you offered earlier. Treat it as making a friend. I will not lose you out." Medicinal Rock Spirit ignored the expression on Xiao Yan's face after saying those words. He simply minded his own business and walked toward the metal scroll. However, just as his hand was about to land on the metal scroll, a warm hand suddenly landed on his wrist, causing his entire movement to suddenly come to a halt. Both Android and Apple are acceptable. The movement of his hand suddenly stopped. The smile on the medicinal rock spirit's face instantly disappeared. When he raised his eyes, he saw Xiao Yan staring at him with an expressionless face. He said, "I'm sorry. I have no intention of changing the owner of the thing that I have obtained." The moment these words were spat out, Xiao Yan's wrist trembled gently. A huge force poured out. The medicinal rock spirit's expression immediately sunk. His body involuntarily took a couple of steps back. After which, his arm trembled. Only then did he remove the force that came from his body. What a powerful physical body. Xiao Yan's sudden attack also caused a cold glint to flash across the medicinal rock spirit's eyes. There were not many people within the Pill region who dared to do such a thing to a member of the Yao clan. Xiao Yan did not hesitate even a little after randomly forcing back the medicinal rock spirit. Soon after, he once again extended his hand and grabbed the soul stone metal scroll on the stone platform. He had seen too many cases of using one's strength to bully others and snatch things. He had also experienced countless numbers of arrogant and despotic people. Unfortunately, such people had never caused him to take a step back. The dark and solemn expression on Yao Shiling's face became even denser when he saw that the person in front of him did not have the slightest intention of giving way. He immediately waved his sleeves and an extremely sharp wind immediately erupted. It instantly interrupted the movement of Xiao Yan's hand. At the same time, he swiftly moved forward and his other hand landed on the metal scroll. Why, you still want to snatch it? Xiao Yan's expression turned cold. His body swiftly moved forward. His right hand pressed down on the empty space, and a huge force poured down. Soon after, a clear sound of metal rang out, and he once again ruthlessly pressed the metal scroll that the young man had picked up onto the stone platform. Immediately after, the medicinal rock spirit's hand blade attacked. Xiao Yan easily brushed aside the attack with his left hand. With a gentle shake, the two immediately took half a step back. Subsequently, Xiao Yan rotated his hand, and the Genesis chi within his body swiftly gathered in his palm. In the blink of an eye, they collided. Boom! A low, deep sonic boom sounded. Xiao Yan's body did not move even a little under this palm. Instead, medicinal rock spirit's expression changed drastically in the face of this attack. Its footsteps involuntarily took over a dozen steps back. After forcefully stabilizing its body, it raised its head to take a look. A pair of eyes that were filled with surprise instantly locked onto Xiao Yan as it cried out in disbelief. 9-star origin sect. In response, Xiao Yan ignored him. He picked up the metal scroll in front of him, and was about to keep it in his storage ring when a chilling look suddenly appeared in the medicinal rock spirit's eyes. He had not recognized the metal scroll when he first saw it, but since he had returned, he naturally could not return empty-handed. After all, the value of the soul stone metal scroll was something that even a grandmaster alchemist could not resist. Open flame slash. The young man let out a low cry in his heart. As he opened and closed his palm, a fierce, intense flame immediately rose. Immediately, he twisted his wrist and a sharp flame violently shot toward Xiao Yan's wrist in a lightning-like manner. At the same time, he raised his cold, stern face and cried out to Xiao Yan in a deep voice. Brat, it is not a wise choice to offend a member of the Yao clan in the Pill region. Xiao Yan frowned slightly in the face of this vicious attack from the medicinal rock spirit. His hand, which was holding the metal scroll, loosened slightly, and he extended his hand with lightning-like speed, forcefully grabbing the flame that had shot over. Noisy fellow. A somewhat impatient low and deep voice was slowly spat out. Soon after, one could hear a banged sound. The powerful dose skill that the medicinal rock spirit had unleashed was forcefully shattered in Xiao Yan's palm due to this overbearing action of his. A cold and stern expression surfaced in Lin Dong's eyes the moment he lifted them. His icy cold eyes stared at the medicinal rock spirit. In the next instant, his body suddenly turned into a black shadow. He appeared in front of the medicinal rock spirit in an instant. A fist was thrown out and struck towards the medicinal rock spirit's chest. Xiao Yan's sudden lightning-like attack also caused the young man's expression to be startled. His body hurriedly pulled back. Soon after, however, he was shocked to discover that Xiao Yan's speed was actually a couple of times faster than his. At such a distance, it was impossible for him to dodge this attack from Xiao Yan even if he used all his tactics. Brat, how presumptuous! However, just as Xiao Yan was about to close in, a stern cry suddenly sounded from behind the young man. Soon after, a white-robed old man with a cold and stern face appeared beside Xiao Yan in a ghost-like manner. His shriveled hand was like an eagle's claw as it grabbed towards Xiao Yan's throat. Source: Venerate Expert. Xiao Yan's heart trembled slightly when he sensed the person beside him. However, this was merely the case. Immediately, he placed his mind back onto the medicinal rock spirit in front of him. Before the latter could rejoice, Xiao Yan's heavy fist heavily landed on his chest. Bang! Amid the low and deep sound of flesh colliding, the medicinal stone spirit's body drew through a perfect arc in midair. After which, it flew backwards and charged into the crowd behind. Xiao Yan's body slowly drifted into the empty air from where he stood. The soul stone metal scroll in front of the stall, which had yet to land on the ground, was once again gently received by a white hand. When the figure appeared, one could see that it was undoubtedly Xiao Yan. On the other side, the moment the source venerate expert behind the medicinal rock spirit made his move, Xiao Ming, who had been standing on the side of the street, had unknowingly appeared in front of the old man. His pair of gray-white eyes stared straight at the old man in front of him. Although there was no killing intent, just a glance from him was enough to make the latter's claw abruptly stop in midair. You are, looking at the strange expert in front of him whose skin and eyes were all grayish-white, the old man's mind froze for a moment before he suddenly recovered and exclaimed, "That's right, the old man's eyes are all grayish-white. Xiao Ming of the Xiao clan. Get lost." Ignoring the old man's exclamation, Xiao Ming coldly shouted. The old man's expression changed drastically as he quickly retreated into the crowd and helped the pale-faced medicinal rock spirit up. In front of the stone platform, Xiao Yan gently waved the soul stone iron scroll in his hand with a smile. Immediately, he kept it in his storage ring. He turned around and stood side by side with Xiao Ming. The invisible aura that he exuded actually blocked the flow of people on the street for a moment. On the other side, the medicinal rock spirit also watched Xiao Yan keep the iron scroll. His originally pale face suddenly became as white as a sheet of paper. There was an additional sinister look in his eyes as he stared at Xiao Yan. I will remember this punch. When the time comes, I will definitely return it many times over. Respectfully waiting. Hearing this, Xiao Yan just smiled disdainfully. He really didn't care about this medicinal rock spirit. After leaving these harsh words, the medicinal rock spirit quickly left with the help of the old man beside him. Xiao Xiyu gently twirled her hair with her jade-like fingers. After the matter was resolved and she joked with Xiao Yan for a while, the three of them didn't stay any longer and hurried towards the teleportation array in Luli City. Because of this incident, their movements were undoubtedly delayed a lot. They didn't know what the situation would be like when they reached Pill City. Chapter 1545. Night. Xiao Yan and the other two were currently seated around a table in a quiet room that was isolated by Genesis Chi. The item on the table was naturally the Soul Stone Metal Scroll that they had obtained during the day. After obtaining the Soul Stone Metal Scroll, Xiao Yan and Xiao Xiyu began to search all over Luli City with great interest. They hoped that they could try their luck and find some treasures that would surprise them. However, good luck did not continuously descend on one's head. After a moment of excitement, the two of them could only follow Xiao Ming to his residence with dejected faces. They began to study the dark black metal scroll in their hands. The legendary Soul Stone Iron Scroll that even alchemy grandmasters yearn for day and night. Let's see what kind of earth-shattering treasure is hidden in it. The gazes of the three of them focused on the black-colored metal scroll in front of them. Xiao Yan's eyes revealed a fiery heat. Immediately, he extended his finger and gently touched the icy-cold metal scroll. A thought passed through his heart, and the enormous spiritual strength in his mind immediately followed the guidance of his mind and swiftly probed into the interior of the metal scroll. A short moment later, he sensed an external force being transmitted from deep within the metal scroll. It was the restriction that the old man had placed. However, this restriction did not have the intentional support of that old man. Currently, it was merely a thin piece of paper in front of Xiao Yan. With a gentle touch, it instantly turned into nothingness. The enormous amount of information contained within it transformed into a green light following the release of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength. It was displayed in the empty space above the metal scroll. Is this the Do skill contained in the Soul Stone Iron Scroll? Xiao Xiyu couldn't help muttering to herself as she gazed at the spreading green light in front of her. Then, she and Xiao Yan focused their gazes on the green light. Spirit-Shattering Finger, a mid-E class soul skill. This Do skill gathered spirit power at one point and unleashed an absolute explosion. The stronger the spirit power of the user, the stronger the power after the condensation. It could even shatter the soul and body together. Anyone who received this attack would be injured. After a simple description, a huge flow of information flowed into Xiao Yan's mind. Of course, because of the uniqueness of the Soul Stone Iron Scroll, Xiao Xiyu also sensed it. Only Xiao Ming leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed. Spirit power wasn't his forte and he wasn't interested in it. Therefore, he naturally had no interest in the Do skill inheritance that was regarded as a treasure in the eyes of ordinary people. A long while later, when the green light gradually faded, Xiao Yan and Xiao Xiyu also withdrew from their immersed minds. After recovering, they looked at each other and saw a glimmer in each other's eyes. It was obvious that they had gained a lot of benefits from it. It's a good Do skill. Although the method is a little cold, it should have a good effect if used properly in a fight. Xiao Xiyu stretched out a jade finger and condensed a huge amount of spirit power at the tip of her finger. Then, she used an inexplicable method to make the huge power invisible. The seemingly weak and slender jade finger easily cut through the space in front of her. It continued to shake violently for a while before it gradually calmed down. Xiao Yan nodded his head in agreement. In terms of strength, this Do technique was no different from an ordinary Do technique. However, the surprising thing was that its special method of unleashing it was able to turn the agglomerated spiritual strength into nothing. Such an attack was likely something that even an expert at the Source Zone level would not dare to underestimate. Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air. His gaze once again returned to the Soul Stone metal scroll in front of him. The fiery heat in his eyes became even more intense. He pursed his somewhat dry and hot lips and slowly said, I am curious now. The Soul-Shattering Finger is only one of the Do skills in the Soul Stone Iron Scroll, but it has already reached such a level. How strong would the second or third Do skill be? Could it be the legendary Saint-class Do skill? Some ripples surfaced in Xiao Xiyu's bewitching eyes as she asked expectantly. If a Saint-class Do skill really appeared, the Soul Stone Iron Scroll wouldn't be discussed by you guys here. Even the usually quiet Xiao Ming could not help but mock when a Saint-class Do skill was mentioned. Without waiting for Xiao Xiyu's expression to change, he closed his eyes and leaned back. Xiao Xiyu spat softly. Xiao Yan nodded gently and said, the Saint-class Do skill is indeed a Saint-class Do skill. My expectations for a Saint-rank Do skill are indeed a little high. However, if I can find a middle-rank intent-rank soul skill or even a stronger one, then this trade won't be considered a loss. Once he finished speaking, he once again poured his spiritual strength into the dark black metal scroll in front of him. Xiao Xiyu's hand gently held a strand of hair as her pretty eyes stared at the metal scroll on the table. However, after nearly 15 minutes, the expression on Xiao Yan's face, which was originally filled with anticipation, gradually disappeared. Even his eyebrows could not help but slowly knit together. Seeing this scene, the expression on Xiao Siyu's face immediately changed. Even Xiao Ming, who had his eyes closed, could not help but narrow his eyes curiously. After nearly 2 hours, Xiao Yan, whose expression was slightly gloomy, finally withdrew his spiritual strength helplessly. He looked at the two people in front of him and shook his head regretfully. He sighed deeply and said, "I have searched every corner of the metal scroll. I can confirm that there are no other soul skills in it other than this soul-shattering finger." An expression of disbelief immediately surfaced on Xiao Siyu's face when these words were said. She said seriously, "How is this possible? Since all the Do skills in the Soul Stone Metal Scroll exist as a set, how can there only be one scroll? Could it be that the old man lied to us and the Soul Stone Metal Scroll is a fake? That should not be the case. The Soul Stone Metal Scroll itself is extremely special. If it is really a fake, it is impossible for you and I not to be able to find some clues given our methods. Moreover, there is also the fourth elder. However, as of now, I'm afraid that we will not be able to understand the mystery of this metal scroll within a short period of time." Xiao Yan shook his head slightly and exchanged glances with Xiao Siyu. Soon after, the two of them shifted their gazes to Xiao Ming. Currently, they could only rely on this almighty source venerate expert. However, Xiao Ming was at a loss when faced with the expectations of the two of them. He shook his head and said, "I have only heard about this thing. As for the details, I don't know. You can look for Xiao Mingyuan." Hearing this, the two of them immediately became silent. Subsequently, Xiao Yan once again injected his spiritual energy into the Soul Stone Metal Scroll in front of him and tried to search. Xiao Siyu stretched her waist and her soft and delicate body immediately swelled up in a proud arc. After which, she lazily shrank back into the chair. Since it was only a matter of time before they found the remaining treasures, there was naturally no need for her to worry about it. However, seeing Xiao Yan's unwilling expression, her pair of slightly tired beautiful eyes turned slightly. Suddenly, she pursed her lips and smiled. "I think you don't need to be anxious for now. If you are so unwilling, why don't I bring you to find an opportunity tomorrow?" Xiao Yan gently furrowed his brows and took the opportunity to withdraw his spiritual energy. He raised his eyes and asked curiously, "Opportunity? Here." Chapter 1546. Although it was already late at night, the liveliness in Glass City did not lose out to the daytime. Under the deep night sky and the brightly lit streets, Xiao Yan sat alone on the roof of a building as he stared into the distance with a listless expression. Everything that had happened in the Twin Saint Mountain range flashed in his mind, causing his heart to involuntarily sink. Since the Green Demon had made a move, it meant that the enormous being behind him, whose strength was second only to the Pill Tower in the entire continent, Ghost Gate, had finally made a move against him. From today onwards, the opponents that he would face would be much stronger than before. Before he could officially fight with that group of neither human nor ghost fellows, he needed to possess sufficient strength. Xiao Yan slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air that had been buried deep in his chest. As he opened and closed his hands, the Genesis Chi gathered at the center of his palms transformed into a beautiful face that was reflected in his pitch-black pupils, causing him to feel endless tenderness. Sun Air, this great appearance was naturally Sun Air, whom Xiao Yan had been longing for. The latter was currently in the Ghost Gate and her situation was difficult to predict. However, the appearance of the experts from the Ghost Gate this time around caused Xiao Yan's heart to quietly form a premonition. The day he would meet Sun Air again was not far away. The next day. After a night of rest, Xiao Yan's group had recovered to their peak condition. When dawn broke, Glass City was once again bustling with noise and excitement. Dense streams of people moved through the city, ultimately gathering at the giant plaza at the end of the street. As the teleportation array activated, a buzzing sound of intense energy undulations could be heard. Golden light rose and fell, and the figures in the array disappeared. Pill City. Giant stone plazas stood in the distant sky. At a certain moment, golden lights suddenly shone from one of the plazas. Moments later, when the light gradually faded, a group of figures with various gazes appeared. Xiao Yan's group was standing among them. Everyone focused their eyes as exclamations quickly sounded. The scene in front of them caused them to feel extremely shocked. Even Xiao Yan could not help but widen his eyes. His face was stunned as he looked at the world that had appeared in front of him. Even though he was very experienced and was used to seeing the grandeur of the Xiao clan, he still involuntarily lost his composure when he saw this scene. Looking from the position of the giant stone plazas in the sky, the place where everyone was standing was surprisingly a vast mountain range. The mountain ranges in all directions were gathered together like pillars that supported the sky. In the middle, which was directly below Xiao Yan's group, was an extremely vast lake. The misty clouds on the lake gathered together under the guidance of some kind of energy, forming a pillar of air that rose into the sky. A city was connected to it. A majestic city that was suspended high in the sky and emitted an overlord aura, Pill City. What a domineering city! It is indeed worthy of being the Pill Tower. Even this headquarters constantly shows its position as the overlord of the continent. After being stunned for a moment, waves of shocked voices finally sounded from the crowd. At the same time, human traffic also surged out from the other plazas in the surrounding empty space. The scene from before began to repeat itself in this world. Seeing that more and more people were gathering, everyone in the square no longer hesitated. They moved one after another and hurried toward the entrance of Pill City. Xiao Yan's group exchanged glances with each other when they saw this. They nodded gently and moved their bodies. They also turned into light figures and appeared in front of the entrance of the city within a couple of flashes. Xiao Yan only noticed that this place was already filled with a black mass after he arrived in front of it. In front of the majestic city gate, there was an invisible barrier that blocked countless people outside. No matter how hard they tried, it was to no avail. The Pill Tower is known as the Holy Land in the hearts of all alchemists. Now it seems that not everyone can enter this place. Xiao Yan felt the pressure on the barrier. It was likely that even ordinary rank 6 alchemists and those below the Origin Emperor would not be able to pass through it. The Pill Tower has stood on the continent for so many years. It naturally has its own unique selection methods. Whether one wants to use it to make a name for themselves or to rise to the top, one must first show enough qualifications for it to take them seriously. Xiaoming only spoke indifferently in response to Xiao Yan's words. Hearing this, Xiaoming frowned slightly, shook his head, and sighed. It is this qualification that makes many people unable to reach the Pill Tower. They can only stand in front of this door for their entire lives. They will not be able to see the real Pill Tower until they die. Therefore, the Pill Tower is still the #1 faction on the continent. After saying that, Xiaoming tilted his head slightly and glanced at Xiao Yan. Then, he walked forward. The two behind him looked at each other and fell silent for a moment. Then, they followed Xiaoming's footsteps. Not choosing the good. Such a harsh selection method was enough to cut off the continuation of any family. However, the Pill Tower, a super faction on the continent, had always been in a position that people could only look up to because of this. Facing the crowded crowd, Xiaoming only glanced at them, and an invisible pressure made the people in front quickly open a path. Then, under the respectful gazes of the people around them, the three of them walked into the city with light steps. After entering the city, the streets in front of them immediately became a lot more spacious. Although there had been a lot of people gathering in the Pill City during this period of time, it did not seem to have any impact on the city. Xiaoming walked forward with ease, and Xiao Xiu introduced the city to Xiao Yan with interest. Compared to the latter, Xiao Xiu was indeed very familiar with the Pill City. When Xiao Xiu mentioned the place they were going to next, Xiao Yan's eyebrows twitched. His interest was finally piqued. So you're saying that the testing hall is the opportunity you spoke of? It can be considered so. Although there are many rumors, no one has been able to prove that the 9-word soul tablet contains the opportunity left behind by a certain almighty from the Pill Tower. There are only 2 results. Therefore, most people still have the attitude of trying their luck. There is no harm in giving it a try. Xiao Xiyu smiled. She had casually mentioned it because she saw Xiao Yan's obsession with the Soul Stone Metal Scroll. She did not expect that Xiao Yan would be so concerned about it. While the 2 of them were conversing, they wandered around the city for nearly an hour amidst the noise around them. Finally, they stopped in front of a large hall in the southern part of the city. However, this place was already packed with people compared to other places. The bustling crowd filled the square in front of the large hall. All kinds of experts were waiting outside the hall. No matter what kind of strength or status they had in the outside world, they could only line up obediently here. When Xiao Yan carefully observed the crowd present, he could even faintly sense a few terrifying auras of Source Venerables. Even Source Venerables are no exception, Xiao Yan quietly muttered in his heart. He involuntarily felt ashamed of the strength of the Pill Tower. However, Xiao Ming by the side suddenly flicked his finger. A white ray of light shot out and swiftly flew over the heads of everyone present. It shot into the large hall. Within a short couple of minutes, an old man swiftly walked out. He arrived in front of the 3 of them and respectfully handed a white jade tablet with the word Xiao carved on it to Xiao Ming. Only then did he say, "This is the Pill Tower. Mister, please." Seeing this, Xiao Yan was taken aback. This jade tablet was issued by the clan. He also had one in his hand, but he did not expect it to have such a use. Chapter 1547. Let's go. Xiao Ming said indifferently when he saw Xiao Yan in a daze. The 3 of them followed the lead of the Pill Tower elder and smoothly passed through the bustling crowd towards the hall in front of them. Along the way, Xiao Xiyu saw Xiao Yan playing with the jade token in his hand with great interest. She seemed to have seen through his doubts and pursed her red lips slightly. Although the structure of this identity jade token is simple, it is the symbol of the clan. Even some of the elders of the Pill Tower have to be polite when they see it. Oh. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He couldn't help feeling a little surprised. He didn't expect such a small jade token to have such great power. Don't underestimate the status of our Xiao clan in the continent. Even if we aren't as glorious as we used to be, we are still one of the 3 great clans. The Pill Tower may be overbearing, but they aren't incorruptible people. They won't be so stupid as to offend our Xiao clan. Xiao Xiyu raised her delicate chin slightly when she finished speaking. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but reveal a proud look. It wasn't that she was overly arrogant, but the Xiao clan had the qualifications to be valued by the Pill Tower. Putting aside their status as one of the 3 great clans of the central region, their status as an ancient clan was something that no one in the central region could easily shake. Xiao Yan sighed inwardly when he thought of this. Indeed, strength was the best stepping stone. Even ordinary Source Venerables had to line up and wait here, but they could easily enter with just a jade token. The foundation of the Xiao clan could be seen from this. With the Pill Tower elder leading the way, the congested crowd successfully opened up a path for them. This caused the originally anxious crowd to immediately cry out sternly. The noise was like a demonic sound that shook one's eardrums to the point of pain. At a certain spot in the crowd, there were 2 groups of people facing each other under countless curious gazes. At this moment, there was a young man and a young woman with their backs against the large hall. The young woman's figure was slightly petite. Her fair cheeks also faintly emitted a naive innocence. As for the man beside her, he had a slightly sturdy figure. On his firm and determined face, there was a faint domineering aura that was not angry but mighty. However, compared to his age, this domineering aura seemed to be overly mature. It was as if this aura was grafted onto someone else. The order of the queue is based on first come, first served. What is the meaning of your actions? At this moment, these two people were staring at the three young men opposite them with gloomy expressions. The sturdy man's voice was like thunder when he opened his mouth. It was filled with a sharp aura. At the same time, his eyes swept across the entire place before finally returning to the three people opposite him. It was as if he wanted to use this opportunity to make the surrounding people make things difficult for him and force the three people to back off. However, in the face of the strong young man's stern yell, the three men with fierce faces only laughed strangely. One of them, a thin man, glanced at the former with a dark gaze and immediately said disdainfully, "What a joke." He disdainfully said, "Brat, less nonsense." Obediently scram to the back. Not only will it save me the trouble of taking action, it will also save you from embarrassing yourself in front of your little girlfriend. He, the sturdy young man frowned when he heard this. He extended his hand and stopped the young woman, who was about to flare up. At the same time, the expression on his face gradually became denser. He knew that words were useless. He immediately snorted coldly and took a step forward. As his body straightened, the aura that belonged to an Origin Emperor swept forward. Oh, a 6-star Origin Emperor. The young man's imposing manner might have caused a slight commotion in the surrounding crowd. However, in the eyes of the three people on the other side, all it got in return was a disdainful ridicule. Before the muscular young man could do anything, the skinny man, who had spoken earlier, suddenly glared coldly at the former. In an instant, a powerful aura that was dozens of times stronger than the former suddenly pressed forward, forcing the man back into the crowd behind. Only then did he manage to stabilize his body. Origin sect. The expression on the sturdy young man's face abruptly changed at this moment. He had long known that the heroes of the central region were gathered in large numbers. However, he never imagined that the first person to take action today would actually be a Origin sect level fellow. Such strength would be considered a peak expert even in his hometown. A mere Origin Emperor dares to be impudent in front of others. You truly do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. As the thin man's Origin sect aura spread out, the other two people beside him also released their own auras. One of them even sneered and said, "You're the one who's going to make a move. Why aren't you scramming? If you don't, we'll make you crawl out of here. You're going too far." At this moment, the girl who had been stopped by the sturdy young man finally could not help but curse. She raised her Genesis chi and was just about to step forward when the skinny man casually raised his hand and pushed her back in the blink of an eye. Even King Yuan dares to take action. You really don't know what's good for you. As he spoke, his figure swiftly moved forward like a phantom, arriving in front of the girl in the blink of an eye. When he saw the fear on the girl's face, the sinister smile on the skinny man's face grew even wider. His 5 fingers reached out, grabbing towards the girl's body. Amidst the size of the crowd, the skinny man's outstretched hand was getting closer and closer to the young lady's delicate body. Just when everyone thought that they were about to witness a beautiful scene, some people's expressions suddenly changed. Their gazes all turned towards the empty space beside the two people on the stage. At the same time, a fair hand suddenly extended from the young lady's side. With a gentle clench, the skinny man's hand, along with his entire body, was instantly blocked. It was as though he was suddenly fixed on the spot. Soon after, a random wave of the hand caused the man's body to uncontrollably fly backwards, flying back to the side of his two companions. When the crowd focused their gazes again, they saw a man in black robes slowly turning around beside the girl, a gentle smile on his face as he looked towards the frightened girl and teased. "Girl, it's been so many years since we last met. You don't seem to have grown much." Hearing this familiar soft laughter, the young lady, who had yet to recover from her earlier shock, was initially startled. A moment later, she finally raised her head abruptly. Her face was filled with disbelief as she looked at the smiling face of the young man in front of her. Xiao Yen. The moment the young lady's words sounded, the body of the burly young man behind her, who had just stabilized his aura, shook violently. He immediately lifted his head to look at the man in front of the young lady. Soon after, a wild joy and excitement surfaced on his face. Xiao Yan, it's really you. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan smiled faintly as his gaze swept across the two. Soon after, he gently rubbed the girl's head and said with a faint smile, Qian, Mu Ling, long time no see. How have you been? Chapter 1548. At the front of the testing hall, Xiao Yan was looking at the two people in front of him with a warm expression on his face in a relatively spacious spot among the congested crowd. The young lady who was called Qian was the beloved daughter of the Green Phoenix clan in the distant western region, Murong Qian. Mu Ling was naturally the young man whom Xiao Yan had met in the southwest border of the continent in his early years. At that time, he was determined to become Xiao Yan's disciple. However, due to a twist of fate, he became the student of Zhou Tai of the Southern Region Alchemist Alliance. Unexpectedly, even he had come to the Pill Tower Grand Meeting. I did not expect to see you here. All right. Seeing these two old friends again after so many years, Xiao Yan felt a sense of familiarity in his heart. This was especially so since Murong Qian had an inextricable relationship with Lang Bingshuang. This also caused another peerless face to surface in Xiao Yan's mind when he looked at this girl. At the same time, a sense of guilt involuntarily rose. He had left the southwest continent for many years. Although it was not easy to travel alone, it was also not an easy task to put the entire Xiao Gate on Lang Bingshuang's shoulders. Now that he had established himself in the middle region, he did not know what Lang Bingshuang's situation was. No matter what, she was still his wife. I was appointed by the Southern Region Alchemist Alliance to come to the Pill Tower Grand Meeting. However, she insisted on coming. All right. Mu Ling, whose aura had gradually calmed down, opened his mouth with a face full of smiles. When the young lady heard this, she pointed her nose at him and snorted softly. Who followed you? I wanted to come to the middle region on my own. It was clearly you who dragged me all the way and forced yourself to follow behind me. These two people spoke one after another, causing Xiao Yan to recover from his temporary absent-mindedness. Mu Ling sighed helplessly. He shook his head and said to Xiao Yan, this girl secretly left her clan. I met her halfway. After I used the Alchemist Alliance to contact her family, they asked me to take care of her. Just like that, we arrived here. All right. Xiao Yan softly smiled and nodded when he heard this. Running away from home was a common occurrence for this girl. However, it was likely that the Murong clan did not expect that she would actually run away to the middle region this time around. Where's Baihua? Since you're here, Baihua can't possibly not be here, right? Murong Qian lightly spat at Mu Ling. Soon after, she swept her gaze around Xiao Yan. Hearing these words, Xiao Yan was slightly startled. Thinking about the intimate relationship between this girl and Baihua, he paused for a moment before saying, he didn't come with me to the pill assembly this time. What's wrong? Could it be that he's in trouble? Knowing that Baihua was not by Xiao Yan's side, the young lady's face immediately revealed a worried expression. The former smiled in a comforting manner and said, don't worry, it's only because Lian, and a few other companions are still in the clan, so Baihua stayed behind to look after them. If you want to see him, I'll take you there after the pill assembly ends. Hearing these words, the expression on Murong Qian's face became much more relaxed. It was only at this moment that noisy curses suddenly sounded from behind Xiao Yan. I thought that it was some kind of hero saving a damsel in distress, but it turns out that it's another brat who doesn't know his limits. Although you're also a Genesis ancestor, you're facing the three of us at the same time. Even if your entire body is made of iron, how many nails can you twist? The skinny man who had been forced back by Xiao Yan earlier took a few steps forward with a gloomy expression. At the same time, the aura of a 4-star Genesis ancestor spread forward. The other 2 people beside him also stepped forward, mocking and ridiculing him. The 3 auras of the same level intertwined and spread, causing the expressions of some of the surrounding people to involuntarily change. A 4-star Genesis ancestor. Although this kind of strength was nothing in the Genesis realm, if the 3 of them worked together, even an ordinary high-tier Genesis ancestor would not be willing to provoke them. Mu Ling's and Murong Qianqian's expressions changed once again when they saw the 3 pressuring over. From Xiao Yan's previous actions, it was not difficult to determine that he was also a Genesis ancestor expert. However, if he was facing 3 Genesis ancestors at the same time, the situation was clearly not optimistic. Xiao Yan frowned slightly when he saw the attitude of the 3 of them. Mu Ling by the side was just about to advise Xiao Yan to withdraw when the latter suddenly turned his head. His tone was somewhat impatient as he spoke to the 3 of them. The person reprimanded in a deep voice. Scram! Murong Qianqian's appearance had caused Xiao Yan's mood to return to the past, causing his emotions to become much more complicated. The 2 people in front of him were fine, but these 3 brats actually dared to be long-winded, causing Xiao Yan to feel a little impatient. Immediately, the aura of a peak Genesis ancestor unfurled, causing the expressions of the 3 to instantly turn ashen. The aura that had leaked out from their bodies instantly shrank back into their bodies like mice that had seen a cat. Even the surrounding crowd immediately became much quieter. A long while later, Xiao Yan's eyes turned around and saw the stunned expressions of the 2 beside him. He was slightly startled, before he gently smiled and said a few words of comfort. Only then did he turn his head to look at the Pill Tower elder in the crowd and asked with a smile, "These 2 seniors are my friends." "Senior, these 2 are my friends. Would it be possible for them to travel with us?" Hearing this, the old man didn't suspect anything. He just nodded with a smile and said, "Yes. Of course. All right." After obtaining the approval of the Pill Tower elder, Xiao Yan bowed slightly and expressed his thanks. After which, he led the 2 of them to Xiao Ming and Xiao Xiu's side. The Pill Tower elder's old eyes stared deeply at Xiao Yan's back. He was secretly surprised in his heart. A 9-star Genesis ancestor. Such a strength was considered a top genius even among the younger generation in the entire Middle region. Moreover, he was an alchemist. Since when did the Xiao clan produce such a person that they were unaware of? Looks like I should pay extra attention to the Xiao clan. The old man gently rubbed his fingers under his sleeves. His eyes inadvertently swept past Xiao Ming, only to discover that the latter was looking at him. His heart trembled slightly as he suddenly turned his head and looked at the 3 people who had been intimidated by Xiao Yan. His old face became solemn as he said, "The Pill Tower has its own rules. No one is an exception here. Since you are in the wrong, withdraw from the queue and queue again at the back." Enough. The moment the words of the Pill Tower's elder sounded, not only did the 3 young men with ugly expressions, but even quite a number of people by the side revealed a sigh. The ranking order was based on one's strength. This was an indisputable fact. Incidents like the one that had just occurred were common in the past. Even the Pill Tower's elders were non-committal when they saw this. No matter how one looked at it, this action of the Pill Tower at this moment seemed to have the intention of treating others as food. The expressions on the 3 young men's faces became increasingly ugly in front of everyone's eyes. At this stage, the entrance of the large hall was right in front of them. How could they be willing to be chased out just like that? The atmosphere was anxious for a moment before one of them finally clenched his teeth. His face revealed a dispirited manner as he respectfully said, "This elder, the 3 of us know that we are in the wrong for the matter earlier. Moreover, these 2 friends have already left the queue. Why don't we? You are not qualified to talk about conditions in front of the Pill Tower." Enough. However, before the young man could finish speaking, the old man interrupted him. His words were calm, but there was no lack of overbearingness in them. Leave. Leave. The faces of the three people in the square immediately turned green when the old man's words sounded. Since the words had already been spoken, there was no turning back. Today, the three of them could only leave in a dejected manner. Chapter 1549. After casually dealing with the three people in front of him, the old man returned to Xiao Yan's group, bowed slightly to Xiao Ming, and said in a humble voice, "Sorry to bother you. I'm sorry to have let you see such a farce. I'll bring you into the hall now." The few of them began to pace. Mu Ling and Murong Qianshan continued to observe Xiao Yan beside them with some disbelief. Regardless of how ignorant they were aware that the Pill Tower was an overlord faction on the continent. However, an elder from such a super faction had to be this respectful when facing Xiao Yan. This really caused them to feel extremely stunned. What had this fellow beside him experienced all these years? Xiao Yan bitterly laughed in the face of the strange gazes of the two of them, who appeared as though they were looking at a monster. He could only roughly describe his relationship with the Xiao clan in the middle region. Although these words sounded simple, they caused Mu Ling and Mu Sun to be stunned when they heard them. Xiao clan. Is that one of the three great clans, the Xiao clan? Mu Ling asked in surprise. His eyes constantly swept over Xiao Xiyu and Xiao Ming in front of him. Murong Qianshan, who was beside him, had a very interesting expression. They had naturally heard of many forces in the central region along the way. Other than respect, they were also very curious about the so-called three great clans. However, they had never imagined that Xiao Yan's real identity was actually a member of the Xiao clan. Moreover, looking at the lineup today, his identity in the Xiao clan was obviously unusual. Xiao Yan did not have time to talk about these trivial matters. Instead, he talked to the two about the northwestern continent. When he learned that Zhou Tai had actually joined the Xiao clan, Xiao Yan could not help but be a little surprised. After all, the Alchemist Alliance never interfered with the factions at the border. Zhou Tai's action would undoubtedly be criticized. However, on second thought, Zhou Tai was a casual person. Even when he was in the alliance, no one could restrain him. It was likely that the condemnation from the outside world would not affect him. While the three of them were conversing, the footsteps of the group had unknowingly paused. The few of them, who had recovered, followed the voices in the hall and looked forward. There were already quite a number of human figures seated on the seats on both sides of the large hall. Numerous gazes that contained various meanings were thrown over when they saw Xiao Yan's group arrive. With his sharp senses, Xiao Yan instantly sensed a gaze that contained enmity. Medicinal rock spirit, it's him again. Xiao Xiyu crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her long and narrow pretty eyes contained a trace of disdain as she spoke. It is unimportant. Compared to him, I am more curious about whether there is anything interesting on that tablet. Xiao Yan gently lifted his chin. His dark black eyes looked towards the middle of the seats at the front. Two gray-robed old men were quietly standing at that spot. Between the two of them was an extremely large stone tablet that was over 10 feet tall. This was the opportunity that Xiao Xiyu had mentioned, the 9-word soul tablet. Haha, everyone, please take a seat. It will be your turn to take the test in a while. After leading Xiao Yan's group to a seat, the Pill Tower elder chuckled and gave a few compliments before quickly leaving. Xiao Yan's group, who had recovered, once again observed some of the people seated around them. His gaze swept over the crowd. Other than a portion of the old alchemist grandmasters who had made a name for themselves in the middle region, most of the people present were from the younger generation. All of them had an origin venerate protecting them. This scene caused Xiao Yan to quietly praise them in his heart. These factions usually did not reveal themselves. It was unexpected that a pill gathering would cause all of them to take action. From this, one could see just how important this pill gathering was. Hiss, what a turbulent fire aura. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's roaming eyes stilled. They paused on a red-haired, young man seated at the front of the seats. From his senses, he could sense that the man might not have used any strength, but there was a wave of hot air rising around him. It was as though the man's body was a boiling hot furnace. Moreover, it was not just him. Even the other people beside him who were traveling with him were the same. That is a member of the Huasun clan. Almost everyone in the Huasun clan has comprehended the Great Tao of Fire. They even have a unique cultivation method for comprehending the Great Tao of Fire. Hence, the Great Tao power that they possess is much stronger than ordinary people. Even if they do not deliberately control it, it will still gather on its own. Xiao Xiyu's eyes stared intently at the red-haired young man. A wisp of flame continuously swam between her fingers. She, who also comprehended the Great Tao of Fire, was curious about the Huasun clan, which was known for its Great Tao of Fire, just like Xiao Yan at this moment. Just as the few of them were looking over, a young man in front of the stone tablet was pouring his spiritual strength into the stone tablet in front of him. As the spiritual strength crazily poured in, the words from 1 to 9 carved on the stone tablet from bottom to top also lit up one by one. Finally, the faint light stopped at the 7th position. At this moment, the young man's forehead was covered with perspiration. However, from the way he was frowning and his eyes were shut, it seemed that he did not intend to withdraw his spiritual strength. It was a long while later before he opened his eyes with a disappointed expression. After observing the black stone tablet in front of him once again, he accepted the rank badge that the Pill Tower Elder handed over to him. After which, he returned to the seats at the back. You really did not manage to find anything. This young master has checked this tablet countless times. You, a fellow who has just advanced to rank 7, actually dare to covet this opportunity. You are really dreaming. The medicinal rock spirit was not afraid of blowing up the matter when he saw the disappointed face of the young man sitting opposite him. He did not hesitate to mock and ridicule the young man when he saw the young man frown and become angry. Forget about the fact that there is no opportunity within the stone tablet. Even if there is, it is likely that only an alchemist above rank 8 would be able to find it. With your half-baked alchemists, it is best that you give up on this thought as soon as possible. The medicinal rock spirit did not forget to look at Xiao Yan's group with a mocking expression when he finished speaking. Mu Ling and Chan Chan could not help but curse in a low voice at this annoying fellow. Xiao Xiyu curled her lips but still sighed and said, "This fellow is indeed annoying." However, what he said is true. This 9-word soul tablet has always been sought after. Even some people from the Pill Tower have checked it a couple of times. However, they have all returned without any results. It is likely that if one wishes to obtain any opportunity from this tablet, one must first possess an even stronger spirit. Xiao Yan could not help but laugh when he heard this. It is strange. Although most accomplished experts are willing to entrust their inheritance to those with great talent and strength, a rank 7 alchemist is already considered to be at the peak of alchemy. If one is really a rank 8 alchemist, why would he lower himself to seek this so-called opportunity that everyone knows about? Wouldn't it be a waste of his reputation if he did not obtain anything? That is why so many people are skeptical about this stone tablet. However, to the Pill Tower, whether the inheritance is real or fake is not important. What is important is that as long as this stone tablet stands here, countless alchemists will flock to it and ultimately become a subordinate of the Pill Tower. A bright voice that contained some laughter suddenly sounded from the side when Xiao Yan's words sounded. Turning his head, Xiao Yan saw that the person who had come closer was the person from the Huasun clan that he had noticed earlier. Chapter 1550. Junior Huishu and Mingqing greets the 4th elder. By the time Xiao Yan's group noticed this person, the latter had already respectfully bowed to Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming's face was expressionless. He coldly glanced at him before ignoring him. Hua Sun Mingqing was unconcerned about this. The fourth elder of the Shao clan had a reputation. Everyone in the middle region was aware of some of his habits. Naturally, they would not be displeased. Huishuan Mingqing turned his gaze to Shao Siyu, a hearty smile appearing on his handsome face. I think this must be the second miss of the Shao clan. Shao Siyu. Shao Siyu bowed slightly and politely returned the greeting. When Huishuan Mingqing looked at Shao Yan, the latter cupped his fists. Shao Yan. As soon as the words came out, Huishuan Mingqing was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. His eyes quickly sized up Shao Yan, and then he cupped his fists and said, I heard that there is a newcomer in the Shao clan. Even the two young masters of the Bai clan were defeated one after another. I didn't expect you to be an alchemist. You're welcome. Brother Huishuan's mastery of the great Tao of fire has reached perfection. The two of them exchanged some polite words with each other. While they were conversing, Shao Yan unintentionally noticed that the medicinal rock spirit had become quiet at this moment. Occasionally, it would look in his direction with some fear in its eyes. This caused Shao Yan to be quietly surprised in his heart. Listening to Mr. Shao Yan's previous words, it seems that you are also interested in the inheritance in the 9-word soul tablet. The two of them did not obtain anything from the other party's words after conversing for a while. Hua Sun and Ming Qing immediately changed the topic and returned to the 9-word soul tablet. Shao Yan's interest was immediately piqued. I'm just curious. I just want to try and see if there is really any opportunity in this tablet. When it comes to opportunities, it is indeed true. As soon as the topic slipped out of his mouth, Shao Yan's eyes lit up slightly. Huishuan Mingqing immediately said, but it's not that I'm intentionally discouraging Mr. I've tried many methods with the intention of finding some clues from this stone tablet. But this thing is like a bottomless black hole, without a source, and there's no way to investigate it. I'm afraid it's really as everyone said, only a rank 8 alchemist is able to open it. At the end of the sentence, even Huishuan Mingqing sighed helplessly. It seemed that he had put a lot of effort into this. Shao Yan nodded slightly and looked at the stone tablet again. Since even the person in front of him said so, perhaps he would really have to return resentfully on this trip. Just as Shao Yan was in a daze, he suddenly heard a few cries. He immediately frowned and looked over. Shockingly, a young girl in a blue dress was standing before the stone tablet. The young girl's delicate body was slender, and her sexy figure was curvaceous. She looked extremely tempting, so much so that the gazes of some of the youths in the surrounding seats were constantly focused on some parts of her body. Their eyes were filled with passion and greed. After a series of tests, the young lady's final result was that she had reached the level of a rank 6 high-grade alchemist. Although this was the case, it still caused Shao Yan, an experienced Daoist, to feel slightly shocked. From the way he saw it, this young lady was likely much younger than Murong Qianqian beside him. Being able to have such an achievement at such an age was really shocking. It's someone from the southern border's Qi family. It seems that this Qi family has also produced an incredible fellow. Huishuan Mingqing's sharp gaze swept across an old man beside the young girl. After noticing the special inscription on the old man's sleeve, he also judged the origin of the two. Qi family. Shao Yan raised his eyebrows slightly, but said that he had never heard of it. On the other hand, Shao Siyu, who was at the side, thought for a moment before finding some traces of the Qi family from her memory. Southern Borders Qi family. It's the Qi family that is near the eastern region. It is said that they seem to have a close relationship with some magical beast forces in the eastern region. If it were not for the fact that the family is located in a remote location and keeps a low profile, I'm afraid that there would be another one of the 3 great clans. Hearing this, although Shao Yan nodded silently, some ripples could not help but appear in the depths of his eyes. He thought to himself that the more the people of the central region saw, the more they felt that their own strength was insignificant. Although the Shao clan was famous in the central region, from the recent events, what he had seen and heard in the past few days was the Yao clan that was attached to the Pill Tower, the Huishuan clan that specialized in the power of the Great Tao, and now a chief family had appeared. Their strength was extraordinary. There were countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the central region. As for him, it seemed that since he returned to the Shao clan, he had been too comfortable. Phew. With this thought in mind, Xiao Yan's eyes drifted to the Mu Ling duo beside him. He secretly decided that perhaps after this matter was over, it was time for him to properly roam the central region. While Xiao Yan was lost in thought, Wuxu and Mingqing seemed to have received some information. He politely greeted the few people in front of him before turning around and walking to the front of the 9-word soul tablet. When the few of them looked over, a Pill Tower elder beside the stone tablet was actually bowing and saying something to Wuxu and Mingqing. Seeing the respectful attitude of the Pill Tower elder, Xiao Yan could not help but be a little stunned. Xiao Siyu by the side finally said, "There are 2 great clans in the Pill Tower. Although the Yao clan is also attached to the Pill Tower, its prestige is far inferior to the other clan. Compared to the Yao clan, the Huishuan clan can be called the #1 clan in the Pill Tower." No wonder, hearing this, Xiao Yan finally understood. No wonder the medicinal stone spirit had completely quieted down after Wuxu and Mingqing appeared. The reason was actually this. Under the gazes of the crowd, Wuxu and Mingqing calmly raised his hand and gently placed it on the 7th word inscribed on the stone tablet. As his thoughts flowed, majestic spiritual strength was quickly poured into it. This scene was completely different from the previous few testers. Xiao Yan was not too surprised when he saw this scene. There were many different methods to test one's soul. However, at the end of the day, they all had one goal. Hua Sun and Ming Chang's method was merely more decisive and confident. The only difference between this method was that one was unable to test a higher spiritual level. However, it was already sufficient for Xiao Yan. As the spiritual strength within the inscribed word became increasingly abundant, the initial gentle glow on it gradually became glaring. In the end, the extremely bright glow seemed to be about to flow out from within. Immediately, numerous surprised voices sounded within the large hall. TSK TSK. Rank 7 high-grade alchemist. It is said that quite a number of rank 7 middle-grade alchemists have appeared during this 1 month. However, there is only one rank 7 high-grade alchemist. It seems that he is an old man who is nearing the end of his alchemy path. It is unexpected that the younger generation of the Huishuan clan has already reached such a level. They are indeed the #1 clan in the Pill Tower. Even in the entire continent, no one can compare with them. The quiet medicinal rock spirit's expression undoubtedly became much uglier when he heard the many envious voices around him. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's eyes stared intently at the inscribed word that was emitting a bright glow. His eyes swept up and down the stone tablet. His fingers under his sleeves were also quietly rubbing. A thought flew in his heart, but he was unable to make heads or tails of it. A moment later, the medicinal rock spirit quickly followed after Wuxu and Mingqing ended his test. However, unlike the former, the medicinal rock spirit was undoubtedly under a great amount of pressure when he stepped forward to accept the test. Rank 7 middle grade. A moment later, the Pill Tower's elder beside the stone tablet reported the results of the test. It did indeed stir a commotion in the surrounding seats. Although it was not as good as the former, it still caused the originally ugly expression of the medicinal stone spirit to recover significantly. Its eyes swept over the place, and an arrogant expression once again surfaced on its face. No matter how one put it, a rank 7 middle-grade alchemist was a peak existence in the alchemist world. Even in the middle region, where there were many heroes, there were only a handful of people of the same generation who could match him. At the very least, the medicinal rock spirit did not pay any attention to some of the people present. This thought flashed in the medicinal rock spirit's heart. His dark and cold eyes once again looked at Xiao Yan. At the same time, the Pill Tower elder in front slowly spoke. Next. That Pill Tower elder's eyes directly looked at Xiao Yan's group after his voice sounded. The latter was a little stunned as he exchanged glances with Xiao Xiu. Xiao Xiu's arms were crossed in front of her voluminous chest. Her enchanting face contained a faint smile, but she was unmoved. Xiao Yan could only shrug his shoulders when he saw this. He slowly stood up from his chair and softly sighed. All right, let me give it a try. P.S. I can tell that the rhythm of these few chapters is a little different from the previous ones. Firstly, I am not online. Secondly, I might need to take the test at the end of this month. Furthermore, I might need to work. My entire person is a little messy. Fortunately, the main content of this short paragraph is a narrative. I only need to insert some things to obtain the buff. After that, it will be the main show. Chapter 1551. Xiao Yan arrived in front of the stone tablet in front of the various gazes of everyone in the hall. His eyes carried some curiosity as he observed the black-colored stone tablet in front of him. Only after the Pill Tower elder by the side gave him a signal did he slowly inhale a breath of air. His expression was as calm as an old well. After which, he raised his hand and gently placed it on the seventh word like the others had done. Humph, pretentious. You're just a guy of unknown origin. If your alchemy skills can go hand in hand with your Genesis Chi cultivation, then don't stay in the alchemy world. Seeing Xiao Yan's appearance, the medicinal rock spirit could not help but curl his lips in disdain. I hope you won't go back on your words later. Xiao Xiu involuntarily replied coldly when she heard this. The medicinal rock spirit was just about to retort when it raised its eyes and saw Xiao Yan's back. Its heart involuntarily trembled. That figure actually caused it to faintly feel an uneasiness, but even so, the medicinal rock spirit still shook his head and tossed away those negative emotions. Yao Stone admitted that he was a little inferior to Hua Sun and Ming Qing when it came to refining medicine. However, he had the pride of being a member of the Yao clan when facing Xiao Yan. He was confident that he might be a little inferior to Xiao Yan in terms of cultivation, but when it came to refining medicine, other than the Hua Sun clan, which was doing very well in the Pill Tower, there was no one in the entire continent who could compete with the members of his Yao clan. However, Xiao Yan had no time to care about this at this moment. The instant his hand came into contact with the stone tablet, the icy cold temperature and the hard metal-like feeling caused Xiao Yan's eyes to instantly brighten. This thing was actually made of the same material as the soul stone metal scroll in his storage ring. Realizing this, Xiao Yan was wild with joy. In other words, the so-called 9-word spirit stone tablet in front of him was a larger spirit stone iron scroll. As long as he probed his spirit power to the deepest part, he might be able to. However, as expected, Xiao Yan's fiery hot heart was mercilessly extinguished by a basin of cold water after a careful investigation. Only then did he recover. If this method was useful, the inheritance within this stone tablet would have long since been obtained by someone else. Why would he need to go through the trouble of rummaging through it? Isn't the result the same as the Spirit Stone Iron Scroll? Unless I use some special method, it's impossible to find it. The majestic spiritual strength wildly swept back and forth within the stone tablet. However, it was ultimately to no avail. The eyes of everyone in the outside world were filled with ridicule as they looked at Xiao Yan, who was frowning in front of the stone tablet. This scene was something that they had witnessed many times. However, they still felt that it was interesting. The higher a person's desire is, the more heart-wrenching and bone-piercing the pain of defeat is. Amidst the disdainful mockery from the outside world, Xiao Yan, who was fully focused on the stone tablet, calmed his mind. He recalled the day before, when he was searching for the Spirit Stone Iron Scroll. Wasn't it the same situation? At this moment, his method of searching had not changed. The only difference between the two spirit stones was the size of the shell and the inscriptions carved on it. Wait, inscriptions. At this moment, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed across Xiao Yan's mind. A wave of excitement instantly surged in his heart. His jumbled thoughts seemed to have found an exit. He quickly calmed down and threw away the previous search process. After sorting out his thoughts, he started to think again. In this way, there is no difference between the size of the spirit stone. The only difference is the inscriptions. If the spirit stone is used as a medium, then the so-called inheritance is actually the inscriptions. The thoughts within Xiao Yan's heart suddenly became clear when he thought of this. The only reaction that could be formed between the spiritual strength and this stone tablet was the inscription that had been carved on it by a strong person. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind, and the spiritual strength that was poured into the stone tablet began to wildly gather. Since the first 7 words on the stone tablet have been tried countless times, then the only thing left is the last 2 words. Calming down, Xiao Yan mobilized all the spirit power and crazily rushed toward the top 8 and 9 words on the stone tablet. After a wave of spirit power, the last 2 words were like an abyss and did not move at all. He was afraid that only a rank 8 alchemist could give it a try. However, this time, Xiao Yan did not give up easily. Since this was the only possibility, even if he tried his best, so what? Pause. Until a certain point. The eyelids of Xiao Yan, who had his eyes shut in front of the stone tablet, trembled slightly at the next moment. He slowly opened his eyes. The instant he focused, a thread of light flashed and disappeared from deep within his eyes. At the same time he withdrew his hand, the words engraved under his palm suddenly emitted an extremely bright glow. The moment this glow was emitted, silence immediately covered the interior of this large hole. Not even the slightest unusual sound appeared at this moment. The entire large hall was covered in a strange atmosphere. This quiet atmosphere lasted for about half a minute. Just as everyone in the hall looked at each other, a slight trembling voice suddenly sounded from somewhere in the seats. Rank 7, high grade, how is this possible? The light on the stone tablet already indicated the alchemist rank of the person who was testing. If the light was dim, it meant that it was low grade. If it was soft and full, it meant that it was middle grade. At this moment, this extremely bright light was not weaker than the result of Huishuan and Ming Cheng's test. This was also the proof of a rank 7 high-grade alchemist. Hua! What followed was an uproar that was filled with surprise. The gazes of everyone present were uniformly focused on the skinny figure in front of the stone tablet. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Forget about the person from the Huishuan clan, it was just that they did not expect that this ordinary-looking black-robed young man in front of them was actually a rank 7 high-grade alchemist. With such an achievement, it was likely that it would be difficult to find a match among the younger generation in the entire middle region. At this moment, Mu Ling and Murong Qianqian also held the same thought. They believed that their familiarity with Xiao Yan far surpassed others. Even so, they did not expect that not only did Xiao Yan's cultivation was shocking, but his alchemist rank had also reached such a level. At this moment, Medicinal Stone Spirit's face was even more ashen. As a member of the Yao clan, he had been sheltered by his ancestors and had a talent that far surpassed others in the art of alchemy. He did not expect that he would actually suffer in the hands of a single person. This was simply a great humiliation. Xiao Yan. The medicinal rock spirit paused after each word. It was a hateful voice that was forcefully forced out from between its teeth. Both of its eyes were red. Its gaze was vicious as it stared at Xiao Yan, who had returned to the side of his companions. The hatred in its heart continued to churn. My Xiao clan has always spoken loudly. However, I wonder if the members of the Yao clan keep their word. The purposeful mocking pause at the end of the sentence instantly angered the medicinal stone spirit to the point that his face twitched violently. He clenched his teeth as he raised his eyes and glared furiously at the smiling Xiao Xiu. That gaze of his appeared as though he wished to kill her on the spot. After pausing for a moment, the fury in his heart finally transformed into a cold snort. He turned his head and swiftly walked out of the large hole. Behind him, that old man's eyes were dark as they swept over Xiao Yan's group. After which, he let out a dense cold laugh and quickly left. Xiao Yan, whose arm was being hugged by the little girl, was involuntarily stunned when he saw this scene. He frowned as he looked at Xiao Siyu and asked uncertainly, "What happened?" Xiao Siyu pursed her red lips when she heard this. An alluring arc was lifted as she laughed. "You asked for it."